Welcome to Poker Fraud Alert Radio. This is part 2 of the show recorded live on March 31st and April 1st, 2025. This was split, so it could be edited more easily. We've done this a lot lately, part 1, part 2. We're going to start with the Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history topic. And before that, I am going to replay the portion of the agenda from part 1 that applies to this episode, so you know what's coming up. And then Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history will be the first thing up right after that, and then it'll take you all the way to the end of the show as broadcast that night. Here is the agenda, and then we'll get going. We're going to do a Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history segment, but I'm going to be honest, it's kind of a loose Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history segment because it's kind of a combination of recent history and the present. It's not quite exactly what you usually hear for Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history, where I pick some obscure thing from the desert or something that goes way back in Vegas and give you the history, but this does have some historical elements, so I think it qualifies. And I'm the only one who can make the judge of whether I can call it Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history, so I'm going to call it that. I'm going to play a little intro, and then we're going to do it. It's about the Barbary Coast, which became Bill's Gambling Hall, which became the Cromwell, and soon the Vanderpump Hotel. Yes, the Vanderpump Hotel is going to be coming next year to Vegas, so that's going to be part of Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history, and I guess also Las Vegas future. Then we have an old topic that we just never got to, but I want to talk about it, and that's Ebony Kenney. She is the latest goofball ACR pro to have been caught using GTO Wizard during the ACR Venom series, which is a tournament series they have on there. I know this is an old story, but some of you don't know about it, and some of you still want to hear what I have to say about it if you know about it. So we're going to talk about Ebony Kenney and what she was caught doing. This is something that not only was caught back in February, I believe, but also something that occurred in 2024, but didn't come to light till 2025. Another older story, Maurice Hawkins got a boost by eliminating a player with 3 left in the World Series of Poker Circuit event that he was playing, despite having the worst hand. Basically, the third place guy got eliminated by Maurice despite winning the hand. And that's the first time that's ever happened to anyone's knowledge that deep in a tournament. This is a pretty big tournament. This is a World Series of Poker ring event, which Maurice ended up winning and getting a ring. And the top prize was 6 figures. So I will talk about that. I'll give you my opinion on the whole thing. And I'll tell you about some debate in the poker community, not over whether Maurice should have won the hand, obviously. It's right on video. It's clear he shouldn't have. But who's at fault, who to blame, what should be done, etc., etc. Remember the story we did about George Janssen, that weird guy who claimed he was kidnapped and extorted for money, and then he was found zip-tied on the side of the road? And I had some serious doubts about the story, especially because there's a plume of $50 bills that was in his car when he vanished, almost like a plume of 50s just flew up in the air when they grabbed him out of the car. I'll tell you guys, if you ever kidnap me, there will not be a plume of $50 bills flying up in the air. I don't think there'll be any bills flying up in the air if you kidnap me. I think you'll be able to kidnap me without a single bill hitting the ground. But somehow with him, there's a plume of $50 bills that flew up in the air and landed in his car. I was very skeptical of the whole story. So is the FBI, apparently. He is under investigation by the FBI and also has been arrested by the FBI. So I will give you the update on that. Ali Imsirovic banned from the Texas Champions Club just for being a poker cheat. Just because they're like, we don't want a cheater here. He hadn't cheated there, to their knowledge, but they're like, no, we don't want him here. He had already registered, and they unregistered him, gave him his money back, and kicked him from the property and said he can't come back. I'll give you my thoughts on that. Here's a story that I wish I had broken months ago, because I knew I got insider information, but I did not reveal it. I don't know why I didn't reveal it. I should have. People would have said, oh, wow, Druff knew this months in advance. But yeah, Nick Vertucci's share of Hustler Casino Live has been sold to GGPoker. So GGPoker now owns what Nick Vertucci did, presumably half of Hustler Casino Live, the other half being owned by Ryan Feldman. I knew about this months ago. Not that it was 100%, but I knew that GGPoker was the most likely buyer and had very serious talks going on with Hustler. Because people tell me things. And I was told this, and I was told this by a reliable source. And I could have reported it. I could have even reported it as a rumor, but I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I didn't post it anywhere. You just had to trust me, I knew, okay? I didn't do you any good because I didn't tell you, but just trust me, I knew. So we'll talk about that. Mike Holtz alleged that Resorts World allowed 2 Spanish pros to get away with blatantly cheating. So we will talk about that. I'll give you my opinion on how Resorts World handled that whole thing, whether I believe Mike Holtz, who has appeared on the show, by the way. Remember Terrrance Watanabe, who was one of the biggest casino whales of all time back in the 2000s? Well, he has some competition now, much more famous competition. Bruno Mars might have lost over $100 million to MGM properties during his residency there. And he still has an association with MGM, so it's not like it's over. But he may have already lost $100 million at MGM properties. I'm talking about gambling, of course. So we will discuss Bruno Mars, and I'll remind you about Terrrance Watanabe as well. Speaking of MGM, MGM Rewards is a little bit better than it was earlier this year. They did a weird thing and actually modified their program to give more benefits starting on March 25th, 2025, which is a really weird time to do it because usually they release all the new benefits when the new MGM year starts, which is February 1st, just like it is for Caesars. So you think it began on February 1st. No, it actually begins on March 25th, which means it began 6 days ago because it is right now March 31st. So I will tell you about these new benefits. They've only added, they haven't taken away, so these are things they added to the program. Some of these are nice things to have, and you should be aware of them. And I'll tell you the fine print of whether you will be able to access these benefits or not. They're not just based on tier, they're based on another factor as well. But they have modified the program, and I'll give you some guesses as to why. Finally, Whiskey Pete's, which is closed in Prim, Nevada, which is right on the border between California and Nevada when you're driving towards Vegas from California, from Southern California, that is. They're closed, but they got a waiver to remain closed and retain their license, which is important because it's a lot harder to apply for a new license than to just reopen under your existing license. So they want to retain the right to reopen under this license, and they were granted that through the end of 2026. I'll tell you why they are interested in that, why that matters, and what might be coming to that area that could change their fortunes. Something pretty big. That is our show for the evening. Now it is time for a segment we do occasionally on Poker Fraud Alert Radio. It is a popular segment. No, it's not Trophy Time Theater. It's the other one.
Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history.
The crickets are coming back out. It's warming up. The bugs are waking up. You know, bugs hibernate. That's why you don't see bugs in the winter typically. Bugs are cold-blooded. They count on the environment to get body heat. Unlike humans that can produce their own body heat, bugs cannot. So when it is below 55 degrees, bugs will struggle. They will start to get sluggish. Then as it gets colder and colder, then they cannot move, and then they can die. So bugs have to hibernate in order to survive the winter. Even in places like Los Angeles, the bugs disappear. The basic rule of thumb is if the average temperature of the day is 55 or less, you probably won't see any bugs. So those crickets, they're not around in the winter. So I did have to record that intro in the summer when I had crickets available. But the crickets are coming back out. This is Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history. This is a little segment I do whenever I feel like it about historical facts regarding either the Mojave Desert or Las Vegas, or sometimes the adjacent areas. When I first came up with this idea, I wondered if anyone would be interested and if people would find it boring. But it's actually been one of the more popular segments we do here, so I'm going to try to do it more often. I will admit this one's a little bit of a stretch to call Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history because it's a mixture of semi-recent history dating back to the 70s all the way up until the present and the future. So I'm going to be talking about one property in Las Vegas, the history behind it, and what is going to happen to it. I could have just made it a regular segment, but I'm putting it under the Las Vegas and Mojave Desert History banner. We're going to be talking about the former Barbary Coast, which is currently known as the Cromwell, but is not going to be known as the Cromwell for much longer. But what did it start as? Because it wasn't always the Cromwell. Well, the Cromwell opened as Barbary Coast in 1979. If you are around my age, and I'm 53 years old, you probably remember Barbary Coast from your childhood and your young adulthood, because it was Barbary Coast when it opened in 1979, and it stayed that way for about 25 years. It was built by Michael Gaughan on the northeast corner of Flamingo Boulevard and Las Vegas Boulevard. Basically, right across from what was then called the MGM Grand, is now called the Horseshoe. It was also called Bally's at one point, but is right across the street from that. And it stayed mostly the same. It got kind of old looking over time, as you might imagine. These casinos age pretty quickly. It happened to feature one of the worst designed and most dangerous parking garages imaginable. I remember the first time I drove in the Barbary Coast garage. I could not believe the blind corners. I was shocked. I really was. And I've driven to some crappy garages before, but this was awful. Like, you'd go around these blind corners, and you just had to pray no one's coming around. I kept honking my horn like a crazy person. As I'm coming to a corner, I was like, honk, 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 because I was so afraid someone's going to race around the corner and smash me head first. I didn't think I was going to die in a parking lot, but it was going to smash up my car and maybe injure me. It was really a pretty scary parking lot. Very poorly designed. I don't know what idiot designed that in the 70s, but someone not very smart. Anyway, in 2004, 25 years later, Boyd, which, of course, is a company that owns Las Vegas casinos, purchased Coast Casinos. You know, all the coast properties around Vegas, mainly aimed at locals. So Boyd purchased Coast Casinos. So technically, Barbary Coast became a Boyd property, but did retain the Barbary Coast branding, because the branding was owned by Boyd at this point, and it functioned the same. So it was pretty transparent to the average player at Barbary Coast in 2004, that even though it switched ownership, it wasn't really obvious, because it was not really a sale. It was just all the Coast casinos were sold by Michael Gaughan to Boyd. But 2 years later, a change did occur that was more noticeable. Now, many of you may not remember this. I've discussed it on the show before, but most people in Vegas don't know this. People who did know it at one point forgot it. This is something that is lost to Las Vegas history, and I'm going to remind you that Caesars had a plan in the mid-2000s, a grand plan that would have changed a lot, but did not come to fruition for one reason. Caesars had a plan to acquire all the properties between Harrah's and Barbary Coast, inclusive, so they needed to get Barbary Coast in some way. They already had Harrah's. Caesars and Harrah's had just merged in 2005, and the name of the company was changed to Caesars. So it is the Caesars you know today. That had happened in 2005. And in 2006, that's when they came up with the idea to get every property under their ownership from Harrah's to Barbary Coast, wreck the whole thing, and then build a mega resort which would overshadow Caesars Palace as their flagship property in Vegas. They were not going to do anything to Caesars Palace. It was going to still exist, but it was going to be across the street from this mega property, and that was going to be the main Caesars property. It was going to be the new, exciting Caesars property right there in Center Strip. The new mega resort was going to be the number one Caesars property, and Caesars Palace would be number two. That was the plan. It would also have the convenience of being directly across the street from Caesars Palace itself, and in the other direction, it would be across the street from Bally's, which is now called Horseshoe, which they also owned. So they not only would own that gigantic block, but they would also own some of the properties nearby. Now, of course, in order to have this mega resort, they did have to acquire the properties they did not own yet. So they already owned Harrah's. They already owned Flamingo. They already owned Imperial Palace by that point, which is now called the Link. And they also owned O'Shea's. But they were still missing one when they came up with this idea. They were missing Barbary Coast. So they had to get Barbary Coast. So they rectified this by trading for Barbary Coast and then giving Boyd some land in the North Strip. So Coast, a.k.a. Boyd, then agreed to this. However, the name had to be changed. It could not be called Barbary Coast anymore because Barbary Coast would imply that it is still a coast property, which is owned by Boyd. And Boyd didn't want that, nor did Caesars want that. Caesars didn't want to give advertising to the competition, and Boyd did not want their coast branding being used by a competitor. So the name had to change. That is why it became Bill's Gambling Hall and Saloon. That's why the name changed. And it became that in honor of Harrah's founder, William Harrah. That's who the Bill was. Bill's Gambling Hall and Saloon, that was in honor of William Harrah, the founder of Harrah's. This was supposed to be temporary, though. Bill's Gambling Hall and Saloon was not supposed to be a long-standing property or name. It was supposed to be destroyed as part of that mass wreckage, which was going to level everything between there and Harrah's and build this mega resort. It was expected that sometime around 2008, this demolishing would happen, and then the mega resort would be rapidly constructed. They did not have a name for the resort yet, but that was the plan. That was why they got it. That's why they traded for it, Caesars. But what happened in 08? I'm not necessarily talking about with Caesars. What happened in 08 to the economy? Do you remember? I bet you do. There was the massive financial crash, which devastated Vegas worse than most other U.S. cities. Vegas was one of the hardest hit cities by the 2008 financial crash. So that put the entire plan on hold. Vegas was really struggling in 08 for several reasons. And the last thing that Caesars could do at that point was embark on this ambitious plan to build this mega resort. They weren't even sure if a mega resort there would be viable. Caesars also ended up heavily in debt as a result of this financial crash and some other factors from some bad decisions they made. You remember the bankruptcy and all that in the 2010s. That was a result of that. So at the same time, they were going to have trouble being able to build such a thing anyway. So they thought, okay, well, what do we do now? Now we've got this Bill's Gambling Hall. What do we do with that? Former Barbary Coast that we didn't renovate or anything. It's still the same old hotel casino from 1979. We planned to just knock everything down and build this, but what do we do now? We've got all these kind of old, beat-up casinos. What do we do? And then they realized, wait a minute. We don't need a mega resort here. We can do just fine by squeezing revenue out of the existing 4 hotels we own here. They've got a great location. We can aim them at mid-level tourists, people who can't afford properties like the Bellagio, but ones who would like to be right there in the action in Center Strip, and ones who want to stay at a real casino hotel in Center Strip and not stay at some piece of crap like Casino Royale, which Casino Royale, that was not part of that whole group, but Casino Royale is a good example of a property with a good location, but the hotel is kind of like a Motel 6. So if you want to stay at a real casino hotel in Center Strip and not spend a lot of money, those are the type of properties where you would go. So they realized that there is a big market for that and that they can make some nice profit margins from it. So why not? Why do they have to wreck them and build this mega resort? Maybe they don't need this in the first place. So that was what they decided to do. And so instead they did some renovations. They renovated Harrah's. They renovated Flamingo. O'Shea's was not a hotel anyway, so they didn't have to worry about that. That's just a casino. They renovated the Imperial Palace, a.k.a. Link. But what about Bill's Gambling Hall, a.k.a. Barbary Coast? They still wanted to do something with it, but as I said, it was at that point about 30 years old. It was run down. It was in poor condition. Even by Caesar standards, it was in poor condition. So they said, what do we do with it? It's got a great location there, right there on Flamingo and Las Vegas Boulevard, but what do we do with it? So they got the idea to turn it into a boutique hotel. So in 2013, they shut down Bill's, which at that point was 34 years old, and they entered into a partnership with the Gansevoort Hotel Group. That's Gansevoort, the Gansevoort Hotel Group, based out of New York, who would stamp their name on the property and they would operate it. It would remain part of the Total Rewards program, which is now called Caesars Rewards, but it would be the Gansevoort Hotel, and Gansevoort would manage it. It would be a Caesars property. I'm not exactly sure how they would split the profits or whatever, but that was the plan. So how come that didn't happen? Well, Gansevoort was found to have ties with a Russian mobster. They didn't know that when they made this agreement, but they didn't do their due diligence. They didn't research Gansevoort enough. They just figured it was a respected company in New York that operated other hotels, so why not partner with them? They didn't look closely enough, and yeah, there was a Russian mobster who was involved with them, and they quickly severed the partnership. However, this was not without damage to Caesars. Due to their lack of due diligence of the matter, this ruined their bid to operate the only casino in the Boston market, because at the time there were 0 casinos in the Boston market, and Boston was willing to give out one license. So that's actually the state of Massachusetts was going to give out one license to operate a casino in Boston. And Caesars was one of the applicants, and in fact, some were believing they were the lead applicant as far as who was a favorite to get it, because only one license would be handed out. Caesars voluntarily withdrew because they knew they had no chance at that point. This was so damaging that they accidentally did business with a mobster, that they knew that this would make their chance basically nothing, and they did not want to put any more resources into trying to get that sole license, because they knew they were dead in the water. So they withdrew the application for the license, and instead that license went to Wynn, who opened up Encore Boston. So that whole attempted partnership with Gansevoort is possibly why there was an Encore Boston instead of a Caesars Boston. Because if that had not happened, there's a decent chance it would be Caesars Boston right now. That's a piece of trivia a lot of people don't know. Well, what about Bill's Gambling Hall, though? They severed the partnership. It was Gansevoort that's supposed to come in and renovate it and operate it. What did they do at that point? Well, they said, you know what, screw this. We're not going to partner with anybody. We're just going to renovate it ourselves, and we're going to operate it ourselves. We don't need a partner. So that's what they did. They renovated it, and they wanted to open it up as a high-end boutique hotel, and they came up with a name. Really, they just pulled it out of their ass. They said, what sounds like an upper-class property name? Oh, how about the Cromwell? Yes, the Cromwell. That sounds like a place that's classy, doesn't it? The Cromwell? Yes, the Cromwell. Come over to the Cromwell and stay here among the fancy people. So that's what they chose. Really for no reason. They just thought it sounded fancy. I'm not kidding. That's really how they came up with the name. Now, there was one person who did not like the name, and that was original Barbary Coast builder and operator Michael Gaughan, who, by the way, is still alive. He felt it reminded him of Oliver Cromwell, who was a brutal 1600s English ruler who mistreated the Irish. Now, Michael Gaughan is Irish. So, while Oliver Cromwell probably isn't known to you, or even to me, to be honest, I guess Irish people know of him, and he's a very bad figure in Irish history. So he was very frustrated that the property that he built is now called the Cromwell, and even though the name was not chosen for that reason, it was not chosen to honor or remind people of Oliver Cromwell, that reminded him of it, and he was mad and told them he didn't like the name and didn't want them to choose it, and they just said, well, too bad. This isn't your choice. You don't own it anymore, so F you. Well, here's where the future comes in. Remember, we're stuck at 2014 right now, but we're about to hop 12 years into the future. Michael Gaughan will finally get his wish because the Cromwell will soon cease to exist, at least in name. The Cromwell is going to end. It's not going to be called that anymore. It's not going to have the same theme anymore. Instead, it's going to change name and theme, and it's going to be called the Vanderpump Hotel. You know that reality show Vanderpump Rules? Or the other reality show, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, where Lisa Vanderpump became known to the public? Yes, that's who it is named after. It is going to be, in a way, Lisa Vanderpump's hotel. I bet you didn't expect that. I bet you didn't expect, unless you've already heard this news, but I bet you wouldn't have expected that a Caesars property on the Vegas Strip is going to be the Vanderpump Hotel. But yes, that's going to happen next year. This is the description of the upcoming Vanderpump Hotel from Caesars' own webpage. Lisa Vanderpump is set to bring her signature glamour to the Las Vegas Strip with the Vanderpump Hotel, debuting in early 2026. The Cromwell Las Vegas will be transformed with opulent furnishings, bespoke lighting. Bespoke lighting, come on. And a captivating new lounge. Every detail from the enchanting guest rooms to the revitalized casino floor will embody elegance and comfort. The Vanderpump Hotel promises a luxurious escape infused with style and sophistication. So what's the story with Lisa Vanderpump? Well, she's English. She's 64 years old. She's had a lot of plastic surgery, if you look at her face. She definitely has the plastic surgery face that rich women will have as they get older, which I don't like, by the way. And I can say this as an older gentleman myself, that I would just much rather see a woman age and have the wrinkles and whatever else comes with it. You know, their face is going to get older looking. So fine, you know, so is mine. Just let your face get older. At least it looks natural. I think it looks so weird when people get this plastic surgery, which makes their face look weird and plastic and unnatural. And this especially happens when older people do it, because then it's especially noticeable, and it makes their face look weird. It makes them look like aliens. I find it very unappealing. It doesn't look good when men do it either. I've seen men do it. It also doesn't look good. But women do it more often than men, just because there's more social pressure on women to look young than men. So Lisa Vanderpump definitely did this. But that's not really the point of this segment here. She already has a history with Caesars, and they're just building on this. She has 4 venues at Caesars properties, all of which have opened at 2019. Now, these are not hotels, but they are venues within Caesars properties, and 3 of the 4 are in Vegas. The other is in Tahoe. In March of 2019, she opened the Vanderpump Cocktail Garden. That's located in Caesars Palace. It is described as, quote, glamorous casino cocktail garden masterminded by TV celebrity with creative drinks and light bites. That was from like Google Maps where I found that. So is it a restaurant? Well, not really. It's more of a bar. It serves food at the bar, but as it even says there in Google Maps, it's light bites, so that you're not going to have a full dinner there. So that was the first thing she opened. And that was really the only thing she had with Caesars until 2022. She's someone who is better known and better liked by women than men. So anything that is themed around her is going to appeal more to women rather than men. So through 2022, that was the only thing that she had with Caesars, but then that rapidly changed. She opened her first Caesars restaurant in April of 2022, Vanderpump à Paris, which was located in the Paris Las Vegas casino. It was described on their webpage as Vanderpump à Paris features delectable dishes, whimsical and unique cocktails, and a lush, elaborate atmosphere with eclectic Parisian-inspired design details. Then in April 2024, 2 years later, she opened up Wolf by Vanderpump in Harvey's Lake Tahoe. It was described as, quote, Wolf by Vanderpump has a full menu that will delight guests with its ingenuity and delicious flavors, featuring reimagined classics as well as unique and decadent shareable bites. The menu is crafted for every season using some regionally sourced and inspired ingredients. So that's another full restaurant there, this one in Harvey's Lake Tahoe. And then she opened her third Las Vegas venue and her second restaurant just in December of 2024, Pinky's at the Flamingo. And this is described as, quote, Pinky's by Vanderpump, coined after Vanderpump's nickname Pinky, features distinctive dishes, statement cocktails. I don't know what a statement cocktail is. Like when they serve it, they say, "You're drinking too much. You're a drunk. You're a derelict. Get out of here." I don't know what a statement cocktail is. The restaurateur's signature design aesthetic, with a nod to the Flamingo's vibrant history, the restaurant and bar combines Art Deco glamour with sumptuous and decadent Vanderpump flair. So they've kind of made the Flamingo into an Art Deco type decorated hotel, which wasn't really fully its initial theme. That's kind of what it became. I mean, yes, it had that pink look to it from the beginning, but the Art Deco look has been more of a recent thing with the renovations there. But basically they're saying that not only is her nickname Pinky, but Flamingo has a lot of pink in it because, flamingos are pink. So it matches. So that's why it's called Pinky, both because the flamingos are pink and she was called Pinky. So it all fits together. So what does the public think of these restaurants and this one bar? Well, fairly good. The opinions of the food are mixed, but it's universally agreed upon by the reviewers that I've read that the restaurants are beautifully decorated and tastefully decorated. The prices are said to be too high, but that could really be said about any restaurant in Vegas these days. So the general public actually has high hopes and expectations for the Vanderpump Hotel. You would think maybe people would be laughing at this, but they're not. People are thinking this is actually a good idea. The Cromwell really had no theme, and this will at least give this hotel a theme. This is the reverse of the de-theming of Vegas. This is taking something with no theme and bringing a theme to it. So some people are optimistic that not only will it have a theme, whereas the Cromwell doesn't, but also that Lisa Vanderpump would not stamp her name on something unless she is very involved in the design of it. So she is not going to allow them to put up something tacky. That maybe she's going to be personally involved in the decor of the place, in the look and feel of the place. Caesars is presumably hoping that Vanderpump's fans and reputation will draw people in. Caesars will continue to own the hotel and operate the casino. So this is not quite the same agreement they had with Gansevoort, presumably. But I'm guessing they're going to be paying some hefty sum of money to Lisa Vanderpump to license her name, and perhaps she will get some of the profits as well. How many other properties does Caesars currently operate that are themed around a celebrity?
0.0.
Yeah, this is the first one. It's the first time they're trying this, that an entire property is going to be themed around a celebrity. They have a lot of celebrity restaurants. They do not have a lot of celebrity hotels. In fact, this is the first one they're going to have. So what do I think, though? I'm not a fan of any of those reality shows or really Lisa Vanderpump. I mean, I don't dislike her, but I'm not excited about her opening this hotel in the place of the Cromwell. So how do I feel about it? Well, I can't see how this is going to be an appealing place to stay because there's some issues with the Cromwell that cannot be fixed by nice decor or a classy theme or anything Lisa Vanderpump can do. Namely, the rooms are small with low ceilings, and the property is very noisy. Most of the rooms hang over Flamingo Boulevard, and it's a low-rise building, so you can't even stay up on a high floor to get away from the noise. Just if you're staying there and facing Flamingo, it's going to be noisy for sure. And then on top of that, or shall I say on top of it, Dre's nightclub, which is open until 6 a.m., is extremely loud and disturbs most of the guests attempting to sleep. There's a lot of complaints about Dre's being very loud and the noise sinking through the ceiling. So I can see how maybe they could thicken the walls or floors without tearing apart the entire property, but the noise issue will probably remain, and of course the windows are going to be an issue. There's just, I can't see how they take that property and make it quiet. So I can't see how that's going to be appealing for most people, given how hard it's going to be to sleep there at night. I can possibly see the Vanderpump Hotel drawing in middle-aged women who are fans of Lisa Vanderpump, and they convince their husbands to take them there. But beyond that, I don't see where it's going to really have enough appeal to bring a whole lot of people in. Now, they're not really risking a lot because the Cromwell has no theme, and people don't really like it. No one's excited to stay at the Cromwell. So the Cromwell's pretty much ran its course, and it didn't even have much of a course to begin with. People are kind of like, why do I want to stay at the Cromwell at all? What's the point? It has no theme. It's noisy. It's small. The rooms have low ceilings. Like, why? Why even bother? That's a good point. My prediction is that the Vanderpump Hotel will last, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so. And then I think Lisa Vanderpump herself will realize it's a fail and nobody wants to stay there at inflated prices. And she will not renew her contract, and they'll probably change the theme once again. Now, how are the other properties doing? Remember we talked about the fact that Caesars decided not to build that mega resort and just stuck with the originals that were there. So how are Flamingo, Harrah's, and the Link doing? Well, I'm sure they're happy they never built that mega resort. There's actually value in having a number of Center Strip properties that are aimed at the working class. In fact, the mistake that a lot of properties are making these days is the obsession with being upper tier when it's unrealistic for them to capture that market. So, for example, the Rio. They just can't accept that they're not going to attract the upper tier market in the location they're at and with the Rio name. No matter how much they renovate it, it's not going to change. The SLS, the former Sahara, which went back to Sahara, that also was a fail in trying to become an upper tier property. It was, again, not going to happen. You have to realize where your market is, who's going to come there, who's not going to come there. You can say you'd like to be upper tier, but you can't just become upper tier. It's kind of like dating in a way. You can say, I'd like to get a girl who's a perfect 10 in looks, but can I really get a girl who's a perfect 10 in looks? Will a girl who's a perfect 10 ever really date me? No? Okay, so maybe I should aim for girls who would. That's the way these properties need to look at their clientele. If you're not likely to get the upper tier clientele, don't knock yourself out trying to get them, because you're going to fail. Focus on who you can get. And Caesars realized one of the smart things they've done a lot of dumb things, but one smart thing they did, even if they kind of backed into it without realizing it just because they ran out of money, was that there is value in maintaining properties that are aimed at the working class, the middle class, the people who want to come to Vegas, have some money to spend, and need somewhere to stay that's not super expensive. So those properties serve a purpose, and they can make a lot of money. So that whole block of properties, Harrah's, Flamingo, Link, Horseshoe even, if you go across the street, those are all kind of the mid-market properties that seem to be doing pretty well. Cromwell was really the only one in that group that was not aimed at that market. They were trying to aim that at the upper tier market. It wasn't working, so they needed to reboot. Next, we're going to talk about Ebony Kenney. Now, this is a story that's a little more than a month old. Meant to cover it, just didn't get around to it, and did not want to let it slip by. So I'm going to cover it, even though it's kind of old news. But the story itself, when it broke, was already about something that had happened a year before. So it wasn't like it was a story about something that had just occurred. It was just about something that was just discovered. Now, giving a bit of a recent history, we covered on this show before the Nacho Barbero scandal on ACR. And Nacho Barbero stupidly posted a screenshot of him playing the ACR tournament series known as the Venom, and stupidly had the helper software in the background of GTO Wizard open on his own screenshot. I mean, that was stupid. That was just plain stupid. So that drew a lot of people's ire that a sponsored pro on ACR, like Nacho Barbero, who's been around a long time, would be using GTO Wizard, which is considered cheating. It is cheating. It's getting automated assistance on what to do in whatever hands you feed into it, so you're not using your own head to figure out the strategy to play. It's a computer feeding you the strategy. It's like the equivalent of using a bot. So he made his excuses about why that was in the background, and he claimed he had it open to help students earlier, and he just never closed it. It looks like bullshit, especially the way it was positioned on the screen. And we covered this before, so I'm not going to cover all that again. Also complicating the whole thing was ACR writing that Nacho's a goofball, and we love him, and if you know his playstyle, there's no way he was using GTO Wizard to cheat. Now, they've actually since deleted that tweet. It was very, very poorly received. Everybody mocked it big time, and they're like, wait a minute, there's serious allegations about one of your sponsored pros using a cheater program to play in one of your own tournaments, and you're just calling him a goofball and laughing it off? So no one liked that, and everybody criticized them. They quietly deleted the tweet, by the way, since then. At first they didn't delete it, but they quietly deleted it, probably after the whole thing died down. And that was big news for a little time in early February. In mid-February, mid to late February, a new thing was discovered, or shall I say a new old thing. A person who goes by MTT Database Review on Twitter posted a screenshot of Ebony Kenney's and wrote another one with a laughing emoji. And it was of Ebony Kenney taking a picture of her own screen, and she captioned it, "Still in this Venom on ACR Poker." Now, this screenshot was apparently from January 2024, but it was really from Ebony Kenney's own social media. And once again, just like Nacho Barbero, she had GTO Wizard on in the background. Can you imagine how stupid? How dumb do you have to be to let this happen? I mean, yeah, she did it before Nacho, so I understand why she wasn't as careful then as she would have been after the Nacho scandal. But still, two of their pros were dumb enough to take a picture of themselves using GTO Wizard in ACR's own tournaments. Like, it's bad enough to have one pro that's stupid, but two? You actually have two separate ACR pros who can't even close GTO Wizard before they take a picture of their screen to send out to social media? I mean, can you believe this? I believe this one was from Instagram, whereas Nacho's was from Twitter, but who cares? They both did it about a year apart, and nobody caught Ebony's until a year later. That's what's funny. She actually got by without anyone noticing. I guess not many people really look carefully at anything she puts out on Instagram. But somehow it took 13 months for this to be noticed. So, of course, a lot of people gave a hard time to both Ebony and ACR, going, look, how many cheaters do you have on your roster there? How come your pros are cheating in your own tournaments? How bad of a look is that? It's bad enough to have players cheating on your site and getting away with it, but your own pros cheating on your site and getting away with it? Are you going to give another goofball answer now about Ebony? So ACR was just trying not to answer this. They were trying to just avoid it and hope it dies down, and so was Ebony for a while. But it did not die down for some time, and Ebony finally made a statement. But before we get to that, I'm going to play you a joint statement, a video statement that was made by Chris Moneymaker and Ebony about the whole cheating scandal. Listen to this. This was posted on February 22nd, 2025.
What's up, guys? Chris Moneymaker here. I'm joined by Ebony Kenney.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think I can speak safely for all of Team ACR and let you know that we are all using GTO Wizard.
We wouldn't be ambassadors for ACR if we didn't get to have special privileges.
It's the reason why I'm an ambassador. It's the reason why Chris is an ambassador. And we work diligently behind the scenes with ACR to remove negativity from our community.
Part of our role as ambassadors is to make sure that we hold the players accountable as much as possible. So if you're running your mouth on Twitter, your account will be banned.
We understand your frustrations, especially when you don't hear from us, but we really, really, really don't care.
We don't have a problem.
People say that we scam influencers and don't pay them.
We don't have a problem.
And there's numerous allegations of sexual harassment.
We don't have a problem.
Also, that report of bot farms stealing $10 million from our players.
We don't have a problem.
We really, really, really don't care.
We will continue to use GTO Wizard and have a complete lack of accountability for ambassadors.
It is really wild back here, and we are doing everything that we want.
I don't want you to reach out to one of us on social media or any of the team pros. Thanks for your time.
Bye, everyone.
That was a little AI-generated statement by Ebony Kenney and Chris Moneymaker posted on the Club WPT Gold official account of all things. And that was probably very likely made by one Seriously Serious who has or had control of that account. Why would this be on Club WPT Gold instead of Seriously Serious' own account? Well, Club WPT Gold is a competitor of ACR, and they enjoy making ACR look as stupid as they can. And Seriously Serious is a good man for the job since he's a good internet troll, so it all works together. Some people criticize Seriously Serious and Club WPT Gold for posting something like this. I don't agree. It was funny, and, you know, competitors make fun of each other all the time. I don't know why people are like, oh, how can you say this about a competitor? How could you put up such a misleading video? Like, it's obvious it's a parody. And I don't know, you guys remember the Cola Wars back in the 80s of Pepsi making fun of Coke and Coke making fun of Pepsi? And there were commercials that kind of did stuff like this. So people are getting too sensitive to complain about this type of content. Anyway, she did make a real statement, which I'll read you shortly. So ACR finally had to say something. This was on February 23rd, 2025. They said, we are aware of a recently resurfaced screenshot showing ACR Poker Pro Ebony Kenney with GTO Wizard open while playing the Venom tournament in January 2024. The image first circulated on social media at that time, and there was no evidence that the software was used in real time to gain an unfair advantage. Following the recent concerns, we re-reviewed the facts and reached the same conclusion. We want to assure players that we take all concerns about game integrity seriously. ACR Poker remains committed to maintaining a fair and competitive environment for all players. We continuously implement and refine security measures to uphold the highest standards of integrity in online poker. I mean, that's really what that statement deserves. What's interesting is they're claiming that they actually reviewed this back in January 2024. Apparently someone reported it to them, or at least they're claiming that, 13 months ago, and I guess just never brought it to mainline Twitter to where it got attention. So somehow it stayed under the radar for 13 months. They claimed they investigated it then, and they just reinvestigated it in February 2025 when they posted this statement, and that neither time they could find any evidence that she used it to play in the tournament, which is bullshit. I mean, obviously it's up because she's playing in the tournament. Why does she have it up? Again, for students, like Nacho said, it's so stupid. So I responded to this. I said, why did she have GTO Wizard open? Because notice they didn't say that. They didn't even give me an excuse why that was open. I asked, same quote, students wanted her to look things up coincidentally during the Venom tournament excuse as goofball Nacho used. So my question there actually got 125 likes, and their original statement got 59 likes. I mean, talk about getting ratioed. Now you may say, well, okay, well, I got more likes, but I only got a little more than double. You know, double is something, but it's not exponentially more. Well, keep in mind, their original statement, this one I just read you right here, got 155,000 views. My response got 5,900 views. So in my 5,900 views, I got 125 likes, and they got 59 out of 155,000 views. Now, it's true on Twitter, most people just scroll by when they view, and they don't bother pressing the like button. So my 125 likes out of 17 views is actually a pretty high ratio for likes. But 59 out of 155,000 is horrible. Horrible. They got 59 likes out of 155,000 views. And my critical comment, which got far, far fewer views, less than 6,000, got more than double the likes. So people are not going for this. As one of the Poker Fraud Alert listeners, Scott Brawner, said, responding, this is getting comical at this point. And I agree. I agree, Scott. It is getting comical. To actually have two pros caught doing this who weren't even smart enough to take it down off the screen? How could you do that? This wasn't even like a live broadcast. This was them screenshotting that they were in the Venom, and they couldn't close GTO Wizard for like a second so they could take the picture? What about the smarter pros that are closing GTO Wizard first? There's probably a lot of those too. Like, is every pro there using GTO Wizard while they're playing on the Venom? Oh my goodness. What a shady sight, really. They did not fire either of these two pros for doing this. Now, before I get to that, let me read you the actual statement by Ebony Kenney from her Twitter account. She waited a few days to make it. She just gave no comment at first and then finally felt she had to say something, also on February 23rd. She wrote, "I know there's been some conversation, so I'm addressing it directly, full statement attached." And then she typed it up on an iPhone notepad, which I hate when people do statements that way, but whatever. "I want to address the screenshot recording that's been making the rounds. The clip was posted by me more than a year ago, which was also circulated during that time. After losing a big hand, I opened GTO Wizard to run the spot while I was not in a hand." Well, let me stop right there. That's already unethical. It's already unethical while you're in the same tournament to see how you should have played that hand according to GTO Wizard. Because if you have a similar spot come up in that same tournament, now you'll do it right. So you're supposed to do this after the tournament's over if you want to review hands and learn from GTO Wizard. You're not supposed to use it in a tournament to check on what you just already did and if it was correct or incorrect. But of course, there's no proof that's what she actually did. I think it's much more likely that she was using it to make decisions during hands. This is just the best story she can come up with. She went on to write, "Let me be absolutely clear. I have not and have never used RTA, meaning real-time assistance software, in real time to gain an unfair advantage while playing. While I do use GTO Wizard, it's rare because I don't study nearly as much as I'd like to." Well, you don't use it, but it's up on the screen during the Venom? "When I do use it, it's strictly to review past hands or run drills, never during play." But it was up during play. What are you talking about? "I fully understand how this looks and the weight of my actions, not just as a poker player, but also as an ambassador for the game. I take full responsibility. I love poker with my whole heart and stand firm in doing my part to uphold the integrity of the game." Yeah, you did a great job. "Additionally, I know there's been speculation surrounding my recent Venom run and bounty pull. I'm more than willing to share my hand histories with anyone who wants to review them. I stand by my play and guarantee you'll find no evidence of RTA use. I remain committed to transparency and to keeping this game one we can all continue to love and respect." So, as you might imagine, people did not like this. This is just her saying, didn't do anything wrong. I apologize for nothing. I'm ethical. F you guys. I've done nothing wrong. Go away. That's basically what that's saying. Response was not good, as you might imagine. Beyrouzi wrote, "Yeah, okay, sure. Also, Lance Armstrong only doped after all his wins to make sure he has a good recovery and nice skin." Good response, Beyrouzi. Christopher P. wrote, "You're a fucking clown. Keep banging Nagy for steaks." Doc is a woman named Dr. Alex Sharon, who sometimes posts on Twitter, poker Twitter. She put a broken heart symbol. "This makes me really sad and disappointed. I look up to you, and the lack of accountability falls flat. Working to send positive vibes to you in hopes that you change that energy." That is interesting. That is interesting that Dr. Alex Sharon wrote that, because this is a woman who is very supportive of other women in poker. She's not a big-name player or anything. She's a recreational player from Canada. And Ebony apparently really was someone she looked up to, and then she's like, "No, that's not a good statement. You're not taking accountability. You're just saying, no, I did nothing wrong. I don't like it. Very disappointed in you." Vanessa Cade wrote, "Full responsibility would be quitting." Yeah, you're right. You know, I don't agree with Vanessa Cade very often. I don't care for her very much, but she's right. Jans Aren wrote, "You don't seem to know what full responsibility means." A person named Tim B. wrote, "You admitted to using GTO Wizard while playing while simultaneously saying you never use it during play." Yeah, I noticed that too. True libtard magic at work here. I don't know if I call it libtard magic. It's more just magic of someone caught cheating that won't admit it. Alex Theologis wrote, "Even opening GTO Wizard and reviewing previous hands while playing is against terms of service." That's a good point. "So you admitting to that is itself a violation. Also, you're eating breakfast in your Instagram story, which contradicts what you said. You wrote a whole essay of BS, but forgot to say, 'Sorry, I fucked up.'" Yeah, I'm not sure what he means by the breakfast part, but whatever. I mean, he has a good point that using it during playing at all, for whatever reason, is against the terms. And we don't even believe that story. Let's face it. Person named Eugene wrote, quote, "I got caught cheating, but I don't really think it's cheating. I take full responsibility, but we'll keep doing it." Yeah, exactly. So just everyone's bashing her. Like, not one person is coming back saying, Oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, Ebony, I love you. Okay, Ebony, you seem like a good person. Oh, all this outrage was for nothing. Okay, thanks for clearing this up. Like, nobody's saying that. When I say nobody, I really mean nobody. Like, I'm scrolling down a comment after comment after comment. There's just so many comments all bashing her, one after the other after the other. So this statement did not go over well. But I guess she felt that's the only thing she could say. I guess if she felt she said something like, yes, I was using it to look up hands during play to get the best decision, people would say, oh my God, like she's directly admitting to cheating here. So ban her and fire her, and then she'll be hated in poker going forward. So I guess she felt this is the best thing she could say. She pretty much had to reverse engineer what was caught into something that's the least offensive thing to admit to. I guess she could have used the nacho excuse of, I was just using it before, and it just happened to be on the screen. But I guess she felt that was going to be too difficult for people to swallow. So she's like, well, I was using it during the tournament, but it was to look up hands that I had already finished playing, not during play. So this really hurt her reputation further. And there were already people who didn't like her. She was already an off-putting person in a lot of ways. And I don't like her. I've always felt she was a phony. I always felt that she was just very sanctimonious and often contradicted a lot of things she claimed to believe. I once called her, quote, not a serious person. And that's what I stand by. She is not a serious person. And not even like in a fun way. Not like a non-serious person who's always joking. I'm talking about like a not serious person who thinks they're a serious person. Who lectures you like they're a serious person, but she's not a serious person. So this has really laid waste to what was remaining of her reputation, and she's kind of gone quiet since then. I can't imagine if she surfaces again on Twitter that she's going to get a good response. What is funny is that her pinned tweet, which is from February 2023, says this: I've got exciting news for all my ladies. After such positive feedback from last year's coaching call during the WSOP, I knew I wanted to create something more. I've been chewing on this idea for quite some time, and she's finally ready. I guess she is the idea. The idea has a gender? What? Embodied confidence has landed. Hashtag poker. And then there's a graphic. It says, Ebony Kenney presents Embodied Confidence, a coaching series for women in poker, 29 March, meaning 2023, at 12 p.m. Eastern. Prepare for the WSOP with a free bi-weekly Zoom series for women on developing confidence on and off the felt. I guess you can be very confident on the felt if you've got GTO Wizard playing for you. I'd be confident, too, if I could just run GTO Wizard on every tough spot I run into, and it tells me what to do. I'd be damn confident. This is 11 months before she stupidly took that picture of her using it. Register now at ebonykenney.com/confidence. I wonder if she's still doing this. This is 2 years later, almost to the day. You think she's still doing embodied confidence? Or you think that lasted like a week or 2 weeks before she gave up on it? Embodied confidence. I mean, like, how much can you do about this? How much is there really to say? I could see if it's like a course she does, which is repetitive, which you only go to once, but she does every week with a new audience. But I can't see how you would do this every 2 weeks and say anything new. How much can you talk about confidence every 2 weeks for 2 years? I can't tell if this is still going. I mean, technically you can sign up. A pop-up just came over the screen, which is really annoying because you can't read about this without subscribing through the pop-up. It's just a crappy site, too, that you can't even read what you're going to be signing up for. Like, you can for a second, and then the pop-up comes over it. Not good web design. You can't exit out, nothing. I guess if you click on it, it goes away. There's no X, but I clicked on it, it went away. Okay, it says, again, this is 2 years old. A coaching series for women in poker. This free series is designed to empower and uplift women by offering guidance and support in building confidence both on and off the felt. Now, I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to give her credit, and not sarcastic credit, real credit for one thing here, that she's not charging for this, because there's some poker coaches, life coaches that is, not strategy coaches. Strategy coaches are fine as long as they're teaching good stuff, but the life coaches, the poker life coaches or mindset coaches are pretty scammy in my opinion, and they really have a very high law of diminishing returns. Like, I guess if you want to hire one for an hour, it can be worthwhile if you need that, but after that, it's pretty much just the same thing over and over. At least she's doing this for free. At least she's not charging for it, okay? And I say that with all seriousness. But I wonder if she's still doing it. It says, through interactive coaching sessions, I will share my expertise and personal experiences to help participants harness their strengths, overcome self-doubt, and develop a mindset of success. I know how you do that. You use GTO Wizard whenever you play online. Right? You can harness your strength, that is opening up a program that tells you how to play GTO poker. Overcome self-doubt, so if you're doubting how to play a hand, just consult GTO Wizard and it'll show you how to properly play, and then you can do it. And develop a mindset of success. Your mindset is GTO Wizard plays very strong poker, so I can count on it to tell me what to do in hands. So I don't have to doubt my game because I'm counting on GTO Wizard to make the decisions for me. Whether you're a seasoned player or just starting out, this coaching series will provide valuable insights and practical tools. Oh, practical tools! Oh, there we go. Well, we know what the practical tools are. To help you become a more confident and successful poker player. Okay, she says it right there, practical tools. Yeah, GTO Wizard. Join me and other like-minded women on the journey toward embodied confidence. Well, why not open this to men, too? Why not let men learn to use GTO Wizard if they're not confident? Because you really can get confident. Imagine you're on ACR and you're just getting clobbered every time. You're just losing every time. You're not a winning player. You feel like you'll never get there. You feel like everyone's better than you. You feel like when you try to make a move, it doesn't work. When your opponents make a move, it always does seem to work. You just feel like you're doing everything wrong. You feel like you're a fish. What if you had a program that instead of you having to make a decision in these tough moments, and often the wrong one, what if the program told you what to do, and it was mostly correct? Wouldn't that give you confidence? Wouldn't that make you feel better? Wouldn't it make people fear you at the table? And then you could delude yourself into believing these were your decisions, that you would have decided that anyway if it hadn't told you? Yeah, that would embody confidence. It's been right there in front of our face the entire way. Alrighty. Let's move on. I don't think we'll hear much from Ebony anytime soon. I think she knows that her reputation is shot and probably hoping people will forget, but I don't think they will. I think people are kind of sick of her at this point. Let's go to another story from February. This is about another person without a great reputation. In fact, worse than Ebony's. That is Maurice Hawkins. Maurice Hawkins, who is one of the two leaders in WSOP Circuit rings, the other one being Ari Engel. They're both chasing that lead. One of them has a very good reputation in Ari Engel, and Maurice Hawkins has the opposite. There's been a lot of complaints about him over the years. We've discussed him on this show. He's even written to me personally and asked me to take down negative threads about him, which I refused to do. He had a court judgment against him for over $100K for money that he screwed a backer out of, and people have complained that he is obnoxious to them at the table and condescending. Everything you can imagine that was said about Maurice Hawkins that could be said has been said. So Maurice Hawkins does not have a good reputation. He is known as a scammer. He is known as someone who screws backers. He's known as an obnoxious guy at the table. He's known as being arrogant. Just not a liked person in poker, to say the least. A person who goes by Chainsaw, and no, not Alan Kessler. This is an unknown Chainsaw. It's a fake Chainsaw, as I will call him. He's at CHIOHYIM. Very difficult Twitter handle to remember. At CHIOHYIM. Calling himself Chainsaw. He tweeted this on March 4th. If you're Maurice Hawkins and at Horseshoe Baltimore, a wheel, meaning a straight from ace to 5, beats a flush at showdown at the final 3 of the circuit main event. And the dealer and reporter agreed, which is wild. Why did they change the rules for big-name players? So what is he talking about? Well, he's talking about an apparent hand, which was later verified to have really occurred, with 3 people left at a WSOP Circuit event with more than $100,000 up top, that in that hand, Maurice made a straight, his opponent made a flush, and Maurice was said to have won the hand, and the player was eliminated. Yes, that really happened at a WSOP Circuit event in Baltimore in March. And not only that, the player who got eliminated kind of realized it at the time, but wasn't sure, and the dealer turned over the card so quickly that the player couldn't verify it and assumed the dealer had to be right, and the guy walked away. Maurice seemed to have known, for reasons we'll discuss in a second. The dealer said nothing, in fact, just turned over the cards very quickly, and the Poker.org reporter actually put that this was okay. So this is what was written on Poker.org. Divyan Satyarthi had just a smidge over 1 million and jammed from the small blind, where Maurice Hawkins met him with a call from the big blind. So Satyarthi had Queen 10 offsuit, Queen of clubs, 10 of hearts, and Maurice Hawkins had Ace of hearts, 3 of spades. The flop put Satyarthi into the lead as it came King to 10 with 2 clubs. So he had Queen 10 with a Queen of clubs. So he had a pair of 10s. The turn was the 4 of clubs, and Hawkins said, "There we go, outs now, out it," referring to he wanted a straight out, though an ace would have been a winner for him too. And sure enough, the 5 of clubs came on the river to give him the wheel, meaning a straight from ace to 5. The problem was there were 4 clubs on the board. Maurice did not have a club, and Satyarthi had the queen of clubs, so he had the queen high flush. Satyarthi did not initially realize the straight had been hit, but quickly realized that he had just been eliminated in 3rd place, collecting the 2nd largest score of his poker career. I think he realized the straight had been hit. He just thought he had a flush when he really did. He had a 1-card flush with a queen of clubs. So there was some debate at first of whether this hand really occurred as written up. Maybe the write-up was wrong, but no, the write-up was correct. It was later verified. So Hawkins went on to win his 18th ring, which at the time tied with Ari Engel. Then Ari Engel won another ring after that, but at the time he had the record tied with Ari Engel for his 18th circuit ring. Divyan Satyarthi cashed for $64K, and Maurice got $140K for winning it. So big difference from 3rd to 1st, as you can see, more than double. There's probably no recourse for Satyarthi. The mistake was also his for just walking away. Now, I have the video of this hand up on the Poker Fraud Alert YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/@pokerfraudalert, you can watch the hand. It's called Maurice Hawkins Eliminates Opponent at WSOP Circuit Event with Worst Hand. So I'm going to play it for you. Obviously, you can't see it as you're listening to this show, but you can go watch it on the channel. And I'm going to play the audio and tell you some things I noticed. And I can see the video, of course, on my end, so I'll tell you what I see there, too. The hands are tabled here. The flop is not dealt out yet. It's all in pre-flop. The dealer, who's an older guy, older white guy, separates the chips, pretty standard, and lays out the flop, as I said, which it is. Give the turn. 4 clubs.
Out it. Out it.
So then Maurice is out it, meaning give me my outs to win the hand, which, by the way, is already bad etiquette there to say out it when you're the one who's the chip leader. So when the guy is in there for his tournament life, it's actually bad etiquette to root for them to lose or to root for yourself to win. It's considered good poker etiquette to root for yourself only when you're the one who's going to be eliminated if you don't get something. So it's fine if you're calling for the cards when you are going to be eliminated if you don't get them. But otherwise, it's considered bad etiquette. But that's not the main point here, of course. It's that the wrong person won the pot. So listen to Maurice. He's saying, out it. This is when the turn comes there. So he's thinking about his straight. Remember, Satyarthi has the queen of clubs, which I don't know if Maurice noticed yet, but listen to his reaction when that 5 of clubs hit to give Satyarthi the win.
Out it.
Silence. Out it. The 5 of clubs is dropped, which gives Maurice the straight and gives Satyarthi the 1-card flush. So Maurice doesn't say, yes, got it. Yes, there's my straight. Yeah, he just goes silent because he knows he lost. He got the straight out, but he unfortunately still lost to the other hand, which is a 1-card flush. So he goes quiet. He doesn't make any reaction. Let's listen on.
Out it. Get the straight.
Oh, shit. I thought I won. My bad.
So then the dealer turns it over real fast. Turns it over, meaning turns over Satyarthi's hand and mucks it. And then Satyarthi says, oh, I thought I won. My bad. Let me play that again. Dealer says it's a straight. Oh, I thought I won my bet.
Oh, shit. I thought I won my bet.
Payout table 38.
So it's possible that Satyarthi didn't see the flush either because the dealer keeps saying it's a straight. And so, yeah. So it's possible that Satyarthi thought that he just had the pair of tens and that the straight beat him because the dealer twice said it's a straight. And he's like, oh, yeah. So it's possible that he didn't notice, but notice Maurice is silent. Notice Maurice has nothing to say there.
Payout table 38.
And the dealer turns over the hand like within a second.
Won my bet.
So let me rewind it a bit here. So he turns it over at the 23-second mark in this video. And the river was dealt
Out it.
at the 19.5 mark. So really in 3.5 seconds it was turned over. 3.5 seconds that Queen 10 stayed out there before being turned over. Now, do I think the dealer was in cahoots with Maurice? Some people are theorizing that the dealer and Maurice are friends and this was done on purpose, or Maurice bribed him. I don't think so. I think they just missed the one-card flush. I think the dealer missed it. He was too much in a hurry. And I think that the third-place finisher, this Satyarthi guy, didn't notice either. Maurice noticed and kept his mouth shut because he's a scumbag. And Maurice was happy to eliminate the guy and be down to heads up and also take the pot, of course. That's what I think happened. I don't think the dealer did that on purpose. Now, why wasn't a floor man there? That's a good question. There was no floor man present for the final three of a World Series of Poker circuit event with 140K up top. That's crazy. There should always be a floor man right there. And when someone gets eliminated at that point, they should leave the hand up. The floor man should inspect it. And then they should do the payout. They should not quickly turn it over 3.5 seconds after it's dealt and muck the hand and say payout. This isn't like a payout for 663rd place. This is a payout for third place. So that's crazy. The dealer really was rushing when there was no reason to be rushing. I don't think it was malicious. It was just incompetence. And that's why you don't turn it over so fast in case you make a mistake. Then people can catch it. Now, there was a tremendous debate as to whether the Poker.org reporter should have said something, because the Poker.org reporter said that they didn't notice it first, but then they realized it as they were walking, like very shortly afterwards. And they knew it was recorded. They knew that this could have been brought back or something, but they chose not to say anything. And a big debate broke out on Twitter whether the media should ever get involved. So if the Poker.org reporter noticed it, should they have said something? Or are they supposed to be like a fly on the wall who can't interfere? Now, famed tournament director and Poker Fraud Alert Radio listener Matt Savage, who's probably hearing me right now, or at least when he listens in podcast form, he and I disagree on this. So he is very much for the media getting involved. And it makes sense that Matt feels this way because he is a tournament director. His goal is to see tournaments running smoothly and without situations like these occurring. Now, he had nothing to do with this tournament, so he's not defending himself here. He had no involvement in this tournament at all. But just as a tournament director in general, you can understand why his mindset is anything that makes the tournament run better and run more fairly is good. So if a media person saying something when something like this happens prevents this from occurring, that's a good thing. That helps the tournament. That's his position. Now, I'm not saying that's unreasonable. I just don't agree. And I'll explain why. You may think I'm crazy to say this. Why would I ever think a media person shouldn't say something? By the way, while Matt Savage took a poll and it was like 98% in favor of the media saying something that was taken by a person who did not express their preference, DJ McKinnon. He expressed it later, but when he first put this out there, he didn't say which way he believed. DJ McKinnon posted this: a poker media member is observing a hand being played in an event. The media member sees the dealer misread the winning hand and the pot is pushed incorrectly with no other participants at the table noticing the mistake. Should the media member inform the table of the mistake? So it got 65.6% yes, 26.2% no, and 8.2% undecided. So yeah, it's more than 2-1. yes to no, but it wasn't like a 98-2 like on Matt Savage's poll. I think the 65-26 is more representative of the way people were really thinking. DJ McKinnon later revealed that he felt media should not say anything, and he wrote, surprised how many people think the opposite. It's like a sideline reporter telling Andy Reid there's an exploit in the Eagles' defense and he can take advantage of it. Matt Savage said back, not only the media, but literally anyone that sees the pot going the wrong way. Brad Willis, who's a blogger, said, obviously we always want the pot to go the right way, not even a question, but, and I mean this with all due respect for poker media, I don't think you want the giant can of worms that opens when you give someone like me complete freedom to stop a pot from getting pushed. Matt Savage said, you realize I'm not saying it's your responsibility to correct it, but if you have the opportunity to do so, I really believe you should. BJ Nemeth and I, who's another poker reporter, have had similar discussions over the years about things like the button being in the wrong position on final tables. Jared Smith was on the side of something being said by the media. He said, by the time this reporter, whoever noticed it, spoke to the floor, the guy was already eliminated with no reprieve. Seems like it would have been more beneficial to be timely when something could have been done about it. Seems the reporter didn't even notice it till later, which makes it a giant nothing burger, but regardless, my opinion remains the same that if cards are tabled, anybody, including a reporter, cocktail waitress, massage therapist, or somebody's grandma should say something if they see it. A person named Travis said, I don't understand the other side of this mentality. We should always be able to prevent dealer mistakes at big tournaments like this because someone's always watching these final tables. What do we lose by having reporters speak up if they see a mistake? So Matt Savage sarcastically said back, apparently they're journalistic integrity, because some people who are journalists were saying, we don't want the responsibility to have to do this. We should not interfere with play no matter what. Matt went on to write, as many have stated, and I know to be true, they were taught not to get involved, but I'm trying to explain this is different. How does the line go? Quote, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And then Norman Chad wrote, here's the thing, sir, and it's rather simple. Your perception and opinion of the media's role or responsibility doesn't change a thing. The media is not an extension of the game. The media is not charged with crawling between the lines and affecting the play at any point. The reporters watching a poker event, like the reporters watching a tennis match or basketball game or track and field event, are there to chronicle the competition, not be part of the competition. You may not like it, but their job does not intersect with the boundaries of running and officiating the play at hand. Totally agree with Norman Chad there. I do not feel the media should ever interfere in anything except for cheating. Because cheating is actually a crime. Cheating is actually a crime. You can be arrested for cheating in poker. You should be arrested for cheating in poker. But if you're caught cheating in poker by a casino, you can be arrested. You sometimes will be arrested. So if you see a crime in progress, that's a different story. So if you see cheating and you want to bring it to someone's attention, it doesn't matter who you are or what your view is or whatever, you should bring the cheating to the attention of those in charge. If you just simply notice something about the play that's incorrect or a ruling that's incorrect as far as who won the hand, you should not say something because that's not a crime. That's just shipping the pot to the wrong person, which is not good, but it's not your place to say something. Now, you still may wonder, why do I feel it's not their place to say something? How could I possibly advocate for letting something like this not get corrected? Isn't it a good thing that it gets corrected? What's wrong with the media saying something? Well, before I tell you, I'll give you a few more takes. Sean Deeb was on the side of no one saying anything. He said, imagine a camera guy in an NBA game telling the refs they ruled something incorrectly and trying to change the outcome of a game. People would lose their shit. It's no different in poker. You guys have such terrible takes on what should be done. Rachel K. Winter, who is a media person, wrote, in my 4 years in poker media, I have spoken up about two misread hands, both face up in the river in all-in scenarios, both very deep in tournaments. Both times I quietly leaned into the dealer and pointed it out. Both times the dealer was incredibly appreciative. One was for a tournament life heads up, and a player was already celebrating their win, even though it was a rightfully chopped pot. The latter was a correction that negatively affected a friend, and even he was appreciative of the fair correction. The cards speak, and you can point something out in a way that does not embarrass anyone, but does not affect the integrity of the game. It's always been my thought that while I, quote, fly on the wall, I work for these poker companies, and why wouldn't they want me to help them uphold their responsibility to keep the game right and fair? I'm not influencing anything by imploring a dealer or floor to take a second look. There are certainly acceptable and unacceptable ways to go about this, but in my opinion, a fair game for all is more important than being invisible. So Rachel K. was very much of the belief that if you can help a fair outcome, if you can help it to where the correct rulings made on who wins the hand, when it seems to be wrong, then you should do it. Kathy Liebert agreed with her and said 100%. Unfortunately, most are not wanting to speak up if it's against their own interests, and I've had players get mad at me and tell me that if the player can't read his own hand, he doesn't deserve the pot. Well, that's a little different. Kathy Liebert's talking about as a fellow player at the table, where I agree a fellow player at the table is to speak up. So I'll give you my take now. I feel that media should be a fly on the wall, except for matters of cheating, as I just said. Cheating is a crime. Any kind of crime witnessed by someone should be reported and brought to the attention of those in authority. But short of that, the poker media absolutely should never get involved, whether what's happening at the table is good or not good, as long as it's not a crime, as long as it's not cheating. Why do I think that? Well, let me give you some scenarios and tell me what you think would happen. So let's say there's a guy on Twitter who is a poker media person, and he's very, very left-wing. And he's one of those left-wing guys who despises all Republicans. And he does not like that I am a political conservative. And he's seen my tweets. And he thinks, oh, that asshole Todd, that fucking conservative piece of shit. Boy, I hate him. Boy, I hope he loses. And this guy's rooting for me to lose. Now, he can't say it out loud because he's working for a poker media company. And he has to feign neutrality. And he's not the type who's going to confront me in person about it, but he's sitting here watching me play, and he's quietly hoping I lose. And then he sees something like this happen, where I get eliminated with the actual best hand that I don't realize and the dealer doesn't realize is actually the best hand. Do you think he's going to say something? He might, but he also might not. If he really wants me to lose, if he really doesn't like me, he may not want to say something that benefits me, right? I mean, it's possible he would, but it's very possible he wouldn't. It's very possible he'd be happy to see me lose, even under those circumstances where I shouldn't be losing, just because he doesn't like me. Now, let's change it around. Let's say that the person who's awarded the pot is me when I have the worst hand, and the guy with the best hand is not getting the pot, but this guy in the media hates me. Do you think he'll say something? Well, 100% of the time he will. Because then he's preventing me, a guy he doesn't like, from unfairly winning a pot that I don't deserve. So in one case, he's speaking up 100% of the time against me. In the other case, he is probably not going to say anything if it's going to help me. So having him there watching the table is to my disadvantage. So every time there's a media person watching the table, I'm going to have to be concerned about what they think of me. Because if they like me, then they're probably going to help and speak up whenever something is to my favor for them to speak up. But if they don't like me, they'll do the opposite, and they'll speak up for my opponents against me. So that really sucks. It also sucks because this benefits name pros. Name pros are the ones that the media people tend to like more. In fact, the media people who report on these tournaments, these poker tournament reporters, they're not paid very well. They're doing it for the love of the game. So they are there because they are fans of poker. That's really why most of them are there. And when you're a fan of poker, you tend to have players that you are a fan of. Just like if you're a baseball fan or a basketball fan or a football fan, you have your favorite players that you admire. And in poker, that tends to be the big name players. So when they see their favorite players at the table, they're not going to want to speak it up and ruin it for them. They're going to want to try to help them. So again, this is going to benefit the name pros and going to hurt the unknown players. Even if these media people don't have any issue with the player who's involved, if they like the other person, then they're going to speak up much more for the person they like and not speak up if it's hurting the person they like. So this can incentivize speaking up or not speaking up based upon likes and dislikes of the people at the table. Because the problem is this is not the media's job, and no one's saying it should be the media's job, to double check that these hands are being handled correctly by the dealer. It's just one of the things like, if you see something, you should mention it. But who says they saw? Only they know if they saw. So they can always make the excuse when they don't speak up, hey, I didn't notice. I wasn't really paying attention. I wasn't watching that closely. And nobody can say for sure, because you can't read their mind. You can't know what they were thinking. You can't know what they noticed. So you're making it optional for them to say something. Because if they don't feel like saying something, they won't. And if they do, they will. So that's where a lot of bias comes in, and that's where you're going to have players that are getting more assistance in these spots from media people based upon who they are. And I don't like that. Now, you may say, come on, that's stupid. But hold on. Let's take it to a further extreme to illustrate my point. Would you like it if I could have my best friend sitting next to me at a poker tournament and watching every hand I'm involved in? And let's say you know for sure he's not going to look at anyone's hole cards or do anything that is cheating. But that what he will do is watch every situation I'm involved in, and if I get screwed in anything, he will speak up. And you'll also know that if something happens which is in my favor, which shouldn't be happening in my favor, if I unfairly get awarded something or something that should be taken away from me isn't because of some mistake, that he's not going to say anything because he's my friend. So he's only going to speak up if it's in my favor. If it's against me, he won't speak up. And you know he's my best friend, and he's sitting right next to me at the table, not playing, but just as my guest there watching the table like a hawk, and nobody else at the table is allowed to bring a friend like that, only me. I'm allowed to have him there to inspect what happens, and make sure I'm being treated fairly, and speaking up on my behalf, but never against me. No one else gets that. Would you like that situation? No. Would you think that's fair to the other 8 players at the table? No. Why? Because I have someone who's looking out for my interests, and they do not. The other 8 players do not, only I do. So that is very unfair for me to have that. Now, in most cases, nothing's going to be done wrong, so he won't have an effect. But in the few cases it does, it's going to be a big advantage to me. So that is where it is unfair. And similarly, having media who can speak up and affect the play, having media there who might do it in favor of some players and not others, is a bad addition to the game. Because they will have biases. It's impossible for them not to. And you do not want to introduce additional biases beyond what's already there. Now, can the dealer be biased? Of course he can. But the dealer has to be there. We can't have no dealer. The dealer is running the table. So we can't say there can't be a dealer. We can't say it's impossible for the dealer to have a bias. But it's the dealer's job. So it's a little bit different, because if the dealer screws up, that reflects badly upon him. Whereas for the reporter, it's not their job. So they can just not say anything and nothing will happen to them. And they have a perfect excuse. Hey, I just didn't notice. The dealer, if he doesn't notice, he's incompetent. And that could be a black mark against him. So, number one, it's his job. And number two, you have to have him there. Biased or not, you have to have him there. Now, what about the other players? They can be biased. You may say, well, there's other players at the table who could choose to speak up or not speak up, depending upon what they think of the 2 players involved. Well, yes. But at least the players have a right to say something, because everything that happens at the table directly affects them. Wherever the chips get pushed directly affects them as other players at the table. So they have a right to always comment on any mistake they see occurring. So it is fine if players want to watch what's happening in pots they're not involved in, as long as the pot is over, as long as they're not interfering with the play. But once the hand is over, if they want to point something out that's a mistake, they have every right to. So what Kathy Liebert was saying is correct. She can point out when something gets shipped the wrong way, because it affects her. It does, because she's a player at the table. Like, would you want the guy to your left who's very aggressive getting extra chips that he doesn't deserve? Of course not. That's a big disadvantage to you. So, of course, you should always have a say in what's happening at the table, and if something happens that's incorrect, you should be able to speak up and say so. And that makes sense, because it is your business. But it is not the business of the media who is reporting. So as unfortunate as it is that the media can witness something like this and not say anything, and the wrong person will get eliminated or lose chips, that's the way it has to be. Otherwise, it introduces a whole new level of potential bias where players can get screwed. And I won't feel comfortable with it. I won't feel comfortable with media watching the table, and I know if that media person doesn't like me, they're only going to speak up against me and never for me. I would hate that situation. I'd want them to go away. I would think, when's this person going to walk off so I don't have the advocate for other players at the table who's against me watching the table, who's only going to speak up on their behalf? I wouldn't like that as a player. Furthermore, as someone who also does media, I don't do chip reporting, but I do media like this show, I do not feel the media needs this responsibility. I don't feel like it's something fair to expect of media, because then there will be the situation where someone in media doesn't notice something like this, and then they're going to be questioned. Hey, why didn't you say something? Hey, are you biased here? Hey, did you not say something as one of the people involved with your friend? There will be all kinds of allegations against them. They don't need this. They're just here to report, be the fly on the wall, just report what they see, not interfere. Now, can I understand the other side of the argument? Yes. There are some debates and arguments that I discuss in poker when we're doing segments on this show where I just can't get the other side's point. The other side is insane or stupid or crazy. This is not one of those. This one I can see both sides. I understand why Matt Savage is taking the position he is. I understand why other people are taking that same position, that the media should say something. I see the arguments for that, because the strongest argument in favor of that is it helps the situation get right. It reduces the number of catastrophic mistakes like this that are sometimes made by dealers. So why wouldn't you want to reduce that number of mistakes? Okay, I can understand that. I just don't like that potential bias in this. I don't think the trade-off is worth it. I think it'd be great if we could have fewer mistakes, or mistakes that are caught, but only if there's no bias. Otherwise, if there's a bias introduced, I don't want it. I'd rather mistakes occur than mistakes occurring, but they sometimes won't be pointed out if caught, if the person catching it is biased. So I just don't want to add additional hands into this cookie jar. I want the commenting of what's going on at the table, unless it's cheating. I only want the commenting by the players involved, the other players at the table, and the dealer, and the floor man if he happens to be around. That's it. Nobody else should have any hand in what's going on. Nobody else should be commenting. All right, I want to give you an update on the weird George Janssen story. We've covered it before on the show, and I will review a little bit what was going on with George Janssen. It's so weird. This whole thing is so weird. I kind of get what was happening there, but it's such a weird story. I don't know how this guy thought that this was going to work, but people come up with dumb ideas when they think they're going to get in trouble and go to prison. So George Janssen has 4 Michigan online WSOP Circuit wins. He's not a known player, even though he's got 4 rings. They were online rings, and he's just a guy from Michigan who plays poker that isn't really very well known. His Hendon mob has $440K in total cashes. So in late 2023, he was found on the side of the road with his hands zip-tied, and they were behind his back. And someone saw him like this, called police. The police came, they cut the zip ties, and then he explained what happened. He said that he had been kidnapped, and he was taken out of state and then brought back to Michigan to retrieve money he had at home. So he claimed that the people kidnapping him knew he had money because he was a poker player, and kidnapped him, and then took him out of the state, and then brought him back to the state because he claimed he had money at home, and he got away somehow. He didn't exactly explain how he got away, but he got away somehow. He was found in Meade Township, Michigan, 175 miles from Toledo, where he claimed he was brought after being kidnapped in Michigan. In one of the articles about this supposed kidnapping, it was mentioned that his abandoned car, when he disappeared, was found with $50 bills strewn all over the floor. Now, I had my doubts about this story, but as soon as I read about the $50 bills, I just started laughing. I knew this was a fake story. I knew that there was no chance this was a real kidnapping. I knew that he staged it himself, because this was an idiot who had watched too much TV, watched too many movies, and believed that this is the way it looks, that when you're grabbed out of a car because you're known to have money, that money's going to fly in the air, almost like in a cartoon. You know, a rich guy's walking with money, and they grab him, and money flies in the air and lands wherever they were before, where they were grabbed from. So he figured if he's being grabbed out of the car abruptly by kidnappers and he has money on him, the money's going to just fly everywhere and land on the ground. So with $50 bills on the floor, why would it be 50s? Why wouldn't it be hundreds? That's what's so funny. But if there's $50 bills all over the ground, that's more indicative it was a kidnapping. Because, who would just walk out of their car with all these $50 bills all over the car? The article also said he owned a car dealership which closed in 2023. He claimed after he'd been found that he'd been the target of extortion for the past 2 years, so the kidnapping wasn't just out of nowhere, that people had been extorting him for 2 years, and they finally kidnapped him. I actually theorized at the time that he may have used 50s instead of hundreds because he was so broke that he couldn't afford to leave that many hundreds. He needed a lot of 50s to leave in the car to make it look like it flew up in the air, and he just didn't have enough hundreds to do it. Anyway, I knew it was bullshit. I figured it had something to do with his car dealership, which had closed that year. I figured he was in some kind of financial trouble and probably did something illegal while he was in financial trouble, and this was some sort of way he did it to get out of it. And then I kind of forgot about the story for a while. To show you how I predicted that he was going to be found to be full of crap, a poster on the forum wrote that there's a minus 250 chance, like 2.5 to 1, that he's full of shit, and set the whole thing up himself. I said more like minus 10,000 full of shit, meaning like 100 to 1 in favor that he's full of shit. I said at the time, way too many things are suspect. As I explained in my posts, the fact that he only received, quote, minor injuries adds even more to the bullshit pile. I also pointed out that it wouldn't make sense to target him as a low-end poker pro for extortion. Why not target known really rich guys in Michigan? Why pick some low-end poker pro who had to close his car dealership? That guy wouldn't have money. It's a weird guy to extort from. So this discussion occurred at the end of 2023, and people kind of forgot about it. But it has come back to public discussion because there's been some action here over a year later. Articles came in the news mentioning that now he has been arrested. And yes, the story was bullshit. It said on theindependent.com, a 4-time World Series of Poker circuit champion who claimed last year to have been kidnapped by a Mexican cartel and held hostage for 33 days in an Ohio basement as part of a 7-figure extortion scheme has now been accused of fraud. That's according to a newly unsealed federal complaint reviewed by The Independent, which says 42-year-old George Paul Janssen Jr. scammed at least 20 banks out of more than $3.2 million before he vanished using bogus loan paperwork to obtain the funds. Janssen, a Michigan car dealer with more than $440,000 in pro poker winnings, went missing in November 2023, 2 weeks after state authorities revoked his sales license for falsifying business documents, then reappeared a little over a month later, hands zip-tied and face bloodied along the side of a rural road in his hometown of Bad Axe, Michigan. At the time, Huron County Sheriff Kelly Hansen said investigators were unable to substantiate whether or not Janssen's account of having been abducted was legit, saying only that there were, quote, a lot of things that need to be looked into. Janssen was arrested on Wednesday, does not have an attorney listed in court records, and was unable to be reached for comment Thursday. George's son, Connor Janssen, is mentioned in the complaint and said to have been a salesperson at Bay Auto, who was also responsible for depositing checks into the business accounts. Bay Auto was the business. This part's written in Poker News, by the way. The complaint alleges that Connor, quote, knew his father was taking false loans and moving money with checks from bank to bank and took out loans on his father's behalf. Connor told agents, meaning FBI agents, he thought the vehicles were real when he took out the loans, but remarked he never saw the vehicles nor any paperwork. Connor also told agents he thought his father was making the loan documents in Microsoft Word. So, okay, let's think about this for a second. George Janssen's 42, and this was 42 in 2025. He was presumably 41 or 40 when this fake kidnapping occurred at the end of 2023. How old could his son Connor be? Couldn't be that old, right? With a father who's in his early 40s? So Connor Janssen obviously is quite young. He was probably a teenager, maybe 20 at most. And it looks like his dad just pressured him to be part of this. It's one thing to be taking fraudulent loans out yourself when your business is in trouble. But to get your son involved in it and put him in legal jeopardy to where he can go to prison, that's just really shitty. I mean, you're going to take the chance for yourself okay. I mean, you're still a criminal, but at least you're only involving yourself and the banks who are the victim here. But to put your son in harm's way like this, that's just really lousy. Really, really lousy. I don't know how he could do that to his son. He should not have involved his kid in this. Anyway, obviously the kidnap and extortion was bullshit, and this was his way to explain why he was defrauding the banks. He probably set this up thinking, okay, they've already revoked my license to run my car dealership because they know about the fraudulent loans. It's only a matter of time before they come arrest me. So what can I do here? The best thing I can do is establish why I did it. They know I did it. They can see that I got $3.2 million worth of fraudulent loans, and I know I'm going to get arrested for this, and I know I'm probably going to get some real time in prison given the amount of money that was fraudulently obtained from these banks. So the only way I can explain this that'll get some sympathy is if I can make myself look like I was being extorted the entire way. If it looks like a Mexican cartel was threatening to kill me if I didn't do this, well, maybe there will be some leniency. So he cooked up this stupid scheme to pretend he was kidnapped for over a month and taken to Toledo and held in a basement, and then was brought back to get money, and then escaped somehow and was running down the road with zip-tied hands behind his back. And he was hoping the cops would say, oh, okay, well, we were about to arrest you for defrauding these banks out of $3.2 million, but, okay, we'll still arrest you, but I have a feeling that the jury's going to go pretty easy on you here because, if a Mexican cartel was making you do it and threatening to kill you and then kidnapping you when you weren't cooperating enough, well, we see what pressure you were under. Okay, there's some extenuating circumstances. That's what he was hoping for. But how stupid was this? And by the way, the reason he did the zip-tied hands is, if you think about it, if you don't have somebody helping you fake the kidnapping, because I don't think he had his son fake this. So I think he probably just went somewhere. He probably just left the state for a month and hid out somewhere and then came back. But it's very hard to tie your own hands behind your back using rope. Very tough to do that. You can tie your hands in front of your body using rope. That's still not easy, but I guess you could do it. But imagine doing that and then getting your hands behind your back somehow. It would be very difficult to do. So it's much easier to use zip ties. It would be quite easy to zip tie your own hands behind your back. That's why he used a zip tie. And then he probably bloodied his face a little bit. He probably hit himself in the face and thought that was enough. But, he couldn't bring himself to really injure himself badly. But he's like, okay, well, I've got to have some injury. So he punched himself in the face to make a little blood. And it's like, okay, that's good enough. And then goes out on the street with a zip tie and the bloody face, and some motorist pulls over. Oh, my God, what happened to you, sir? Oh, I just escaped kidnappers. And then they call the police, and he thinks he's getting it over on them, but they figured it out, and it wasn't very tough. What a dumbass. Ali Imsirovic has gotten banned from a poker room, and I think this is a great ban. I would love to see more of this occurring, because you do not have a right to play in any poker room. Any poker room, for any reason, except for a discriminatory reason, can say they don't want you there. They don't have to prove you did anything wrong. You don't have a right to be there. In fact, any poker room can just say, we don't like you. We just don't care for you personally. So we're banning you. No other reason than that. We just don't really care for you. We don't want you here. Just like any business can. A restaurant can do that. A store can do that. You do not have a right to be in any business. They can kick you out at any time. Only thing they can't do is say, we don't allow you here because you're black. We don't allow you here because you're gay. They can't do that. But they can say, we just don't personally like you. So leave. So that's what the Texas Champions Club did during a $1,500 tournament there. Ali Imsirovic showed up, registered, and started to play. Someone there recognized him and apparently didn't like him very much and decided that they just didn't want him there. Ali Imsirovic faced a major scandal in 2022 when he was revealed to have routinely used real-time assistance and multi-accounting at high-stakes games online. He eventually admitted to some of the allegations in a video that was very much panned and insulted, where he was trying to explain himself and just came off worse. He admitted to some of these things but downplayed them. People got even more angry. His friend Jake Schindler was also accused of similar cheating. They were suspended from a Poker Go series later that year, but it's unclear if they're still banned from Poker Go. A lot of people have wanted to see both Ali and Jake banned from the World Series of Poker, but so far it hasn't occurred. Maybe during the GG era of World Series of Poker in 2025, maybe they will be banned. A lot of people do want them gone. Ali showed up last year playing and wearing a mask, which many assumed he was wearing not because of health, but because he was hoping it would allow fewer people to recognize him, and he was afraid of confrontations regarding the cheating that he did. But someone at Champions Club, I don't know if it was a customer or someone working there, noticed he was there and didn't like him there. And the decision was made that even though he had not been accused of any cheating at Champions Club or any of the other Texas card rooms, that they just didn't want him there in the tournament. So they went to Ali and said, "You're a cheater. We don't like cheaters in our club. Get out. Here's your $1,500 back. We're taking your chip stack out of play. Get out." And he did. He left, and that was that. So he didn't lose his money, but he was thrown out of the tournament near the beginning, and that was that. And you know what? Most people supported it, and I support it. I think it would be great if more known cheats were banned from poker games, not just tournaments, everywhere. This would help dissuade others from cheating in the future. So I realize this could turn into a witch hunt, and people could be unjustly banned due to false allegations. But this could be fixed simply by sticking to bans for the clear and obvious cheaters, not ones where it's kind of questionable. Like, for example, take Robbie Jade Lou and that whole hustler thing with Jack 4. You know, about half the poker world thinks she was cheating, about half thinks she wasn't. So that's not a clear and obvious case of cheating, and it was one case. So I would not say she should be banned from poker rooms. But someone where it's pretty much accepted by everybody in poker, or almost everybody in poker, that they cheated, or in like Ali's case where he admitted it, I think it's fine to say we don't want these people in the game anymore. So we can't force every room to ban them, but we're banning him from our room. I think more rooms should do it. I think more series should do it. I think more cash games should do it and just say, we just don't want cheaters in poker. You're known as a cheater, get out. It's not your right to play poker. It's not your right to be in these poker rooms. You want to have your own home game, fine, but these poker rooms should get together and say, you know what? Any well-known cheater, anyone who's widely assumed by the community to be a cheater, we're just going to ban them. I don't think there's going to be many or even any false positives there. Because I can't think of a single high-profile cheating scandal where later it was discovered the person was innocent. I can't think of one. Usually when someone is known widely as a cheater, it's because they are. So I would love to see these people just out of poker, and it would really dissuade people who are good at the game, like Ali, from doing any cheating if they know it's going to shut them out from a lot of poker rooms where they could otherwise play. So I think that's great. Hats off to the Champions Club for having done that. I'd like to see more of this occurring. If you'd like to text me, 775-372-8355. There is no way to call me right now with our phone issues. Hopefully we'll have that resolved in about a month or so. Thanks to Skype going away. And I jumped the gun a bit in starting to correct that. Here's a story that I could have brought to you several months ago and didn't. And I wish I did, but I didn't. So now I'm reporting it after the fact. As you remember from back in October of 2024, there was a big scandal with Hustler Casino Live where co-owner Nick Vertucci was accused of sexual harassment of players in the game and also of a dealer at Hustler who just kind of disappeared. So there was a big scandal about that, big outrage about that. The outrage did not die down very quickly, and Hustler finally realized that they just couldn't leave Nick there, that they had to get rid of him. But it wasn't so simple to get rid of him because he was a half owner. They can't just fire him. So they took him out of public view, But they had to sell his part to get rid of him, and he had to agree to do it. I heard from a source inside of Hustler that they were honestly looking to get rid of him and to replace him with a different owner. And I considered that source to be reliable. And I put that out at the time. In fact, I put it out on Twitter, and I also talked about it on this show. However, not too long after that, I heard about who a prospective buyer was, and I was told that this buyer was likely to actually end up purchasing Nick Vertucci's half of Hustler Casino Live. But it was just taking some time, probably negotiations or whatever. But I was told that likely this deal is going to go through. So I knew who the buyer was likely going to be, and I could have reported it quite some time ago. In 2024, I could have reported this, and I would have been way ahead of everybody else, and I would have been proven correct. And people would have said, oh my gosh, Dan Druff just gets the info on everything. Because this was a different source than what told me that Nick was going to be selling his half. And this was kind of a secret at the time regarding who was going to buy it. It's not a secret anymore, and the purchase has taken place, apparently. So the purchaser turned out to be GGPoker. They are now half owners of Hustler Casino Live. Yeah, surprising, huh? But not to me, because that's what I was told. I knew it. Why didn't I say it? I don't know. I meant to say it, and I kind of just forgot. That's kind of what happened. I should have, I just didn't. But yeah, GGPoker now owns half of Hustler Casino Live. I'm assuming it's half. I think Ryan had half, Nick had half, maybe not, but that's what I think. Remember, GGPoker also owns the World Series of Poker. So now GG owns World Series of Poker and Hustler Casino Live. So they're really just trying to get dominance in the poker space, in the live poker space and the online poker space where they already have it. They are the most popular poker site. Ryan Feldman told Poker News, quote, "It doesn't really impact my role. It just means I'm doing more." And he said that the more part is the business side of things that Vertucci was previously handling. He said that GGPoker is not going to do what Vertucci was doing. And he's not referring to touching women's ears and asking to see their tits and anything like that, like Nick did, but that GGPoker is just taking a hands-off approach, and that Ryan is going to have to handle the business side of things. They're almost like a silent partner. When I say almost, I mean it's not like they're going to have no say, but they're not going to handle day-to-day operations like Vertucci had done. It is not clear what was paid for Vertucci's share, but Vertucci is supposedly out, and he no longer has anything to do with Hustler Casino Live. At least that's what they're claiming. Vertucci was not all that well known prior to being part of Hustler Casino Live. Feldman was well known, but Vertucci wasn't. I remember when Hustler Casino Live was first announced. In fact, Ryan came on the show for like an hour and a half to talk about it when they were starting it. And I hadn't heard of Vertucci before. Ryan also said it adds some legitimacy to our company. It kind of strengthens our company. We now have a major force in the industry behind us. It strengthens our global reach. He also said that he got a lot of calls expressing interest in buying Vertucci's stake, but only GGPoker, quote, had the willingness to get a deal done. And I think if you read between the lines, he meant that only GGPoker wanted to pay what they were asking. So GGPoker probably overpaid just so they could have a half stake in the biggest live stream in poker right now. Daniel Negreanu has never played on Hustler Casino Live, and now people are wondering if perhaps Negreanu will play now that GGPoker owns half of it and Negreanu is their lead pro. He's the face of GGPoker. Feldman, however, said that he's always gotten along well with Daniel Negreanu, and Negreanu just didn't choose to appear on there. He said, "I've always had a great relationship with Daniel. He just seems to be the type who doesn't love to leave Vegas, and his interest is really not in cash games now." Negreanu said, "You rarely see me playing high-stakes poker on streams anymore, but this is going to get me out of retirement and returning to the felt. Playing on the most epic cash game stream poker I've ever seen. I'm ready to battle." So he is going to be on there at some point. I wonder what was paid. Maybe I could find this out. I don't know if I'll say it if I find it out. You know what? Maybe I don't want to promise you guys if I find out I'll say, because I may not say. I always have to balance whether I should say something when I hear something, even if I know it's true. I have to balance what I feel is too much invading the privacy of whoever or whatever I'm talking about and the public interest. I kind of balance that. Now, this I should have said about GGPoker buying it because, it seemed likely to happen, and it wasn't going to be a secret once it occurred. So it was just a matter of getting it out before it happened. So I probably would have said that had I thought of saying it when I did the show, whenever it was after I heard about this. But as far as the price, that's never going to be disclosed. I know that's a company private thing. So even though it's possible I could hear it from someone, because I do have connections that tell me things, including connections that people don't realize that are ones who talk to me. There are people who talk to me in poker that you would think don't talk to me. There's people I know that don't make it public that they have a good relationship with me and tell me things. These are not people I interact with on Twitter. You don't see me hanging out with them at the World Series. So there are some people that will tell me things you'd be surprised if you knew who they were. I'm not so worried about getting that person outed because some things are known by enough people to where it'd be hard to narrow down who it is. It's just a matter of revealing something that really isn't the public's business. So I probably wouldn't reveal it anyway. I'm curious myself. I'd love to know myself, but I probably wouldn't reveal it if I knew it. I've not been an anti-Hustler Casino Live person. I've been pretty neutral about them, as you've probably been able to tell. I haven't done pro-Hustler Casino Live coverage, but I haven't done anti. I've been really very neutral as far as they're concerned. And I've always gotten along with Ryan Feldman. He's not my friend, but he's appeared on this show, and whenever I've seen him around, he's always been nice. And I haven't had issues with him. I haven't heard of any bad things he's done. It's not like he's been nice to me, but he's also scamming people. It's not like that. He seems fine to me, and I've gotten along with him. I consider these things also before I reveal anything I hear of what I think of the company, what I think of the people behind the company, and if they've always been respectful to me, I don't like revealing company private things. So I probably wouldn't reveal it, but I'd be curious for my own information. May never find it out, though. I don't care that much. Just a curiosity thing. All right, so moving on, I want to talk about the Resorts World thing that happened with Mike Holtz. This is Mike Holtz bringing it out there, and there was some debate about this regarding whether Mike Holtz was making too big of a deal about this and whether anything was that bad or maybe he was making false allegations. But I want you guys to hear this because I agree with him without having been there to see it. And some of his concerns are also my concerns. So I'm going to play you a video he posted on Twitter. It got over 1,000 likes, so obviously a lot of people agree with Mike Holtz. I have found that Mike Holtz is usually pretty reasonable. In general, I like him. We're not friends, but in general, I like him. He appeared on this show and talked about how WSOP.com was mistreating him for some time, and he was right in that situation. He got it rectified, but he was right. When I've seen him present opinions on things, in most cases, I've been on his side. I didn't love how he played in the dealers event, the casino employees event, that is, in the World Series of Poker, and ran deep. I didn't think he belonged there. But aside from that, I have agreed with things he said and think he's generally a good guy. But I don't know him well, but that's my impression of him. Let's listen to his thoughts about playing at Resorts World and cheating he noticed there and how Resorts World not only didn't take action, they were hostile to him. Let's listen to this.
I want to make a video explaining what happened at Resorts World during the $800 main event. I played day 1C, and at my table were two either Spanish or Colombian guys, I'm not sure their ethnicity. One's in the 9 seat and one's in the 2 seat. The guy in the 9 seat has a big stack, the guy in the 2 seat does not. Every time the 9 seat opens, it seems to me like the 2 seat is folding in a way where he's folding his cards and showing the 2 seat. So every time he folds it towards the 9 seat rather, and he can see. That's only when there's 7, 8, and 1 seat fold that he does it every time. I saw it twice, and I thought this guy's got to be. It's pretty funky. Like it's a weird hand motion to do.
Let me stop this for a second here. No problem with what he's saying so far, and keep listening to him. But why do people record this stuff in the car, and you hear the car sounds in the background? I don't know if he's actually driving or not, but why go in the car? At the minimum, it sounds like the engine is on. Like, why not just do this in your house, where it's quieter and easier to follow? I don't know why people love these car videos. You can't record this in a better setting. It's a little bit distracting, but I'm sorry. Small nitpick. We'll go on.
So I decided to watch. So I noticed that he started folding normally whenever the 9-seat wouldn't open. Now, the 9-seat wins this tournament, by the way. Keep that in mind. He wins all the money. The third time it happens, it's my big blind. 9-seat opens, 2-seat folds. Does in the way, and I mutter something to myself like, what the fuck, man? And then it comes to me. I call, and I check fold the flop. To my right is my buddy Patrick. Patrick immediately says, they're fucking cheating, right? Like, they have to be cheating. I was like, yeah, no, they're cheating 100%. Call the floor over. The floor, like, looks at us and is just like, I don't know what you want me to do about.
Now, before we go on to what the floor's reaction was, Patrick is Patrick Leonard, so he's not just a random Patrick. He's a well-known player. Let's go on.
There's like if they keep doing it, tell me. Happens again. Same thing. I'm arguing with them at the table. I'm like, bro, you guys got, like, what are you doing? You're cheating us right now. And they're like, you're sort of losers. You're just sort of losers. And meanwhile, I have 7 starting stacks. So it seems odd to me that would be their line of reasoning. If I did that, I would be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. If I do it again, please let me know. So the guy in the 2-seat gets eliminated. I get moved to a different table. And there's another guy who's part of their friend group. He's in the 1-seat. I'm in the 3-seat. Colin Robinson, good professional poker player. He's in the 2-seat. The guy who busted earlier in the 2-seat, the guy sharing the cards, walks into the Resorts World poker room behind this guy who's in the 1-seat. And he's talking in a different language while cards are being dealt. And I'm looking at the floor. I'm like, yo, get this cheating fucker out of here. Like, get him away from us. He can't be here. He gets cards on the button. The guy behind him is staring at me, just like smiling, like, yeah, you can't do shit about it. They don't care. Cards get dealt to him. He looks at it. The guy behind him is looking too, and then the guy behind him immediately just stares at Colin Robinson and I in the blinds and starts talking in a different language. And I start yelling. I start yelling before, what is happening right now? What could possibly be occurring other than them cheating? The guy behind him runs out of the poker room. The floor says, what do you want me to do, chase him? I'm like, dude, you gotta tell this guy still sitting at the table that he can't cheat us. Well, what is happening right now? So that's the first day, okay?
Let me stop there and catch you up on what's happening in case this story is a little confusing. So basically, there were a few allegations here. First of all, there was a player at the 9-seat who was later identified as Juan Campayo Hernandez, and he was the one who ended up winning the tournament. The person in the 2-seat, every time he would fold in a way to where he would kind of hold the cards up in the direction of the guy at the 9-seat, who appeared to be the same ethnicity as him, and would be able to see the cards. So this would be an advantage, like he'd be able to see what cards are being folded. And then he also noticed that when the 9-seat wasn't in the hand, that 2-seat would fold normally and not show his cards. The 9-seat was the one who had a lot of chips. The 2-seat did not have many. So that was his first problem. And then when he brought it up, that the floor wouldn't do anything. So then when the 2-seat guy got eliminated and couldn't do this anymore, and the 9-seat guy had a big stack and was still there, of course, then the 2-seat guy returned, and he was standing behind the table and speaking in Spanish, which is not allowed. You can't speak in a foreign language ever in a poker tournament. And it's like standing behind the table and speaking in a foreign language to this guy who is in the 9-seat, this Juan Campayo Hernandez. And Mike Holtz is like, hey, get this guy out of here. What is he doing back here? First, we think he was cheating and showing cards to his friend here, and now he's back, probably trying to look at our whole cards and tell him stuff in Spanish. Then he's claiming that Resorts World's floor was refusing to do anything about it. And then when the guy who had been in the 2-seat actually started running to get out of the poker room when Mike Holtz was complaining about him, when he was standing behind him, the floor just sarcastically said back, well, what do you want me to do, chase him? So let's go on here and listen more of the story.
There was also an incident where A guy pocketed 10,000 chips, tournament chips in his pocket. My buddy Brad Gafford, who just got second in the nation today, was there, told the floor, one of the floors, they said they checked the cameras. Cameras never checked. Guy gets kicked out 4 hours later. He's already been trespassing the casino. So this guy's stack's got to be removed with 30 people left, 24 advance. 4 hours earlier, the floor was told he's stealing chips from the tournament.
Now, that's a different tournament he's talking about, where a guy was seen pocketing 10,000 in tournament chips for whatever reason, maybe to use later, maybe to give to his friend later, maybe to add to his stack if he gets low, whatever it might be. So there's a lot of cheating reasons one could pocket tournament chips. So he was seen doing that. It was reported. They claimed to have checked the cameras to see if he did, and apparently they didn't because they claimed not to have seen anything. And then they ended up booting him anyway because upon looking into who he was, he'd already been banned from there already, and had been reported 4 hours prior about the stealing of the tournament chips and putting it in his pocket. And it took them 4 hours to realize that he was already banned from the casino previously and shouldn't have been there. He probably wasn't banned by name, or they would have caught it right away when he registered. It's probably one of these things they banned him by face, and then when they looked at the records of who he was, they're like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we banned this guy before. We just didn't have his name, so they banned him then. And Mike Holtz is complaining there were only 30 people left, and they had to just take that stack out at that point. And when that guy had busted was out, and that guy should have been out 4 hours ago, even just for being banned from the casino itself. And he was cheating, and they wouldn't take it seriously.
I talked to Stan Lee the next day. He was at his table. He said he thought that guy went north at one point. He said, I didn't understand. The guy had 30K, then he had 90K. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah, so apparently this guy must have also had chips in his pocket, maybe from a previous tournament, and went north means that all of a sudden you end up with extra chips in your stack that don't make sense, that just get there in a tournament. Because in a cash game, you can add chips to your stack, provided you're not exceeding the buy-in. But in tournaments, of course, you can't just add chips unless you win them. So a form of cheating sometimes is taking chips off of your stack and then using them in a different tournament, especially when you're late in the event and when you can get higher denomination chips very easily. They don't mean much at that point, and you can bring them to earlier stages of a later event, and they're worth a lot more at that point. So he was saying that same guy suddenly went from like 30K to 90K in chips and wasn't seen to win that much, and it wasn't making sense. And that was interesting that he was also seen taking chips off of his stack and pocketing them the following day.
So that happened. There were some other incidents. Stan Lee, I watched him at the table. He changed up. He gave 500K. The floor came back and gave him 100K. And Stan was like, where's the rest of my money? And the floor was like, oh, I was going to give it to you. I got it. I was going to give it to you, but I just didn't. I was going to wait a little bit. So I don't know. That was unfortunate. The dealers are exposing cards like crazy. There's a guy, glasses, sits down, like here, deals from here. He's dealing from here. Everyone could see his cards. Okay, I'm in 5 different poker group chats in Telegram. Every single one of them during this tournament is just shitting on Resorts World. The floor, the staff, everything. And it sucks because I like a lot of people at Resorts World. I think Justin Hammer's a really, really nice guy. I think Leon's a really nice guy. Leon wasn't there for any of this. But I just think we as a community need to start doing better. Somebody has to do better. There's no way we can just continue to be cheated. And I'll tell you this. When I first mentioned the guy cheating at the table, or the next table where the guy ran, the dealer who was there starts calling me names, starts saying I'm a crybaby, and then I'm just, oh man, you're combusting, is what he said. The floor is watching this whole thing, so he told him on break to chill, but it's still, a dealer should never talk to a player like that. You should be fired on the spot. Straight.
I agree with that. I think that's really, really unprofessional. Dealers should not be talking trash to players, especially if the players don't start up with them. It's one thing if it's a really obnoxious player who's harassing the dealer because they're being dealt cards that end up losing. Like I've seen this, especially at Commerce. The players treat the dealers terribly when they're not running well. And that's just something you should never do. You should never abuse the dealers because you're running bad at the table. Never. But I see it happen all the time. But if 2 players are in an argument or one player is accusing the other of cheating, the dealer should never start mocking the player who's accusing the other. The dealer shouldn't get involved. Unless he notices the cheating, then he should say something. But the dealer should never mock the guy accusing the other of cheating. He should stay out of it. So that's really bad to say, oh, you're combusting here. That's really bad. You should just talk to him. He's right. He should get fired on the spot. That's just inappropriate behavior.
Straight up. So, I say all this to say that eventually we get another dealer. He's exposing cards. His name's John. I tell him 5 hands in a row. There's several regs at this table who can confirm this. I'm calling cards out. I'm saying black face card, red queen. What's going on right now? The guy won't even talk to me. Okay, the floor's watching this. I keep saying I can see cards. Okay, 5th hand happens. I see cards. This guy, the dealer's like, dude, are you saying you see cards? If you see them, you should say something. Keep in mind, I've been like screaming for 5 minutes straight, 5 hands. So I call the floor. I'm like, bro, this guy, I can see all the cards he's dealing. So floor instead of the floor telling him to stop, the floor sits behind me and watches to see if I can actually see it. Now he's saying he can't see it, but I'm calling the cards. So I see under the gun gets dealt a black 3. I say black 3. Next hand, black 3. Face card. And he's like, you didn't see anything. Who has the black 3? Who has the black 3? I turn around the floor. I'm like, dude, this is fucking crazy, man. Please help me. He's like, I don't see anything, man. What happens? Under the gun slowly flips over a black 3. I go off. Here's the point. Way too many nonsensical things happened at Resorts World yesterday. And the guy who is blatantly cheating and is involved in the cheating group with the Venetian guys, too. They're all good friends. I watched them on break together at Resorts World. All those guys are friends. There's like 6 or 7 of them. And I caught the one guy in the group a year ago ghosting someone at the Venetian on GG. So, I don't know. I was made to feel like a pariah at Resorts World. While I was there, I felt uncomfortable and unwelcome. And when I walked out of the room, I could just hear the staff of, I don't know if it was the Poker Atlas Tour or dealers or whatever, but I could hear them openly talking shit about me while I left after I was cheated there. Keep in mind, I had a meetup game at Resorts World, like, I don't know, a few months ago with Poker News where we brought 100 plus people in there. So I don't want to have beef with Resorts World. I don't want to have beef with any casino. But we have to do something as a community. This has gotten far out of hand, and people are cheating in crazy ways. You think some people aren't using pinhole cameras with their phones on there? Do you think that's not happening? Because it is. We're being cheated. Every dealer in poker needs to learn how to deal like the European dealers do, where they deal face down. You can't expose it. There's too much pitching up in the air. As soon as I got LASIK surgery, I am able to see cards. I don't know if I have good pattern recognition or what. I see the edge of a card, just a little bit, just a shadow, and I'm pretty positive what it is. And it happens all the time. And what scares me is that I feel like I'm the only one, or one of the only ones who says something. So if I'm one of the only ones that say something and no one wants to believe me, how many other people are seeing this and not saying shit? Next time you 3-bet a river and get snapped off by 4th pair, I would assume that you should think to yourself, did I just get cheated? Because that's what poker's devolved into at this point. It seems like it's like, who can cheat better? So unless we as a community can all come together and say, fuck this bullshit, stop cheating us. We want an environment where everyone is safe. Everyone feels safe and welcome. We want more people in poker. You know what happens when they see cheating scandals over and over and over again? People don't want to play poker. Do you want to kill the game? This is how we kill the game. Please, anyone wants to reach out to me. I really feel like I've literally burned some of my social credit because I keep talking about this so vocally, and I don't want to be that guy. But someone has to be that guy, man. We need this. We need to end cheating. And when you see someone at your table talk about getting cheated or think everyone should stop doing what they're doing and take it extremely seriously, because we're playing for amounts of money that regular human beings don't see very often. So it incentivizes cheating. I don't know. I don't know. I appreciate anyone who's listened to this entire thing. And if you have any questions, let me know. But I think poker can have a very, very bright future. It's a fantastic game that we all love. I just want to see us be more protected. And shout out to the Win. Multiple times I've had someone do something funny at the Win. Win goes to the cameras and they give them a round penalty, or they give them 5-round penalty, blind dodgers, whatever. The Win is on point. So whatever the Win's doing, if they can do like some sort of TD summit or some sort of like I don't know, consultation for, I mean, they're not going to want to do that, but I don't know. The win has been great. Everywhere else should be like there. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening.
This got a lot of positive response. There's some people who were negative to him, but mostly it was a positive response. People agreeing that something has to be done, that these rooms, especially Resorts World, are too lackadaisical regarding these responses to the cheating when people make the allegations that Resorts World and other rooms don't take it seriously. Some of the tweets in response, Joel Baker, and he actually was third place in that particular tournament at Resorts World, said, I was in the tournament, took third place, and 100% felt like the guy who won the tournament was getting info from his buddies at times. They would stand behind other players. I mentioned it to Kenneth James that he needed to be more careful when looking at his cards. Kenneth James was at the final table too. Elvis Tumas said, be aware of your surroundings. Take a minute and watch this video. If you notice something, speak up. Ryan Reese, who won the 2013 main event, said, shout out to Mike for always standing up for the good of the game. Andy Block said, these things have always been a problem. It seems like it's getting worse. Unfortunately, there's always been a lot of both poorly trained dealers and experienced dealers who get sloppy over time, and poor management who don't ever watch things like how dealers pitch. So a lot of people spoke up in support here. And yeah, this group of players, these Hispanic players, I don't know what their actual ethnicity is, but this group of Hispanic players that's said to be a cheating ring, it's probably true. It's probably true. A lot of people are noticing this. A number of people in the threads, they've noticed this guy and his buddies at other tournaments where they think something shady's happening. Again, if over and over and over again, groups of people are being accused of cheating by the community, just get rid of them. You don't need proof. We're not putting them in prison. You're just kicking him out of the room. You're just kicking him out of the poker tournaments and saying, you can't register, you can't play here. We think you're cheating, that's enough. We don't need to prove it. A lot of people think you're cheating. It's upsetting our other players that you're here. You and your buddies are just not welcome anymore. You think there's going to be a lot of outrage? You think there's going to be people going on Twitter going, oh my God, hey guys, guess what? They actually kicked out the winner of one of the Resort World events. Juan Campayo Hernandez can't play anymore at Resorts World. Injustice. They haven't proven in a court of law that he's a cheater. And they kicked him out. Can you imagine, guys, what an outrage? Nobody would say that. Nobody would speak up in his defense. Nobody would say, don't play at Resorts World because you kicked out Juan Campayo Hernandez and his buddies. Nobody would say that. If generally everybody gets a bad vibe from these guys, that they always seem to be doing shady things, they're always doing crap that isn't right. You have one that's flashing cards. You have another getting behind the other and speaking Spanish and then running away when the tournament director comes. Like, just get rid of the whole group. You don't need more of a reason than that. Just that something is wrong. That the players feel there's something wrong. Experienced players think there's something wrong with this group of people. It's making people upset and nervous, and just the room doesn't want them here anymore. More of that needs to happen. And these players would have no legal recourse. Because, again, Resorts World can get rid of them at any time for any reason. Disqualifying them from the tournament in the middle is a harder thing because then there's a gaming matter because money's at stake. But just not letting them register at all and saying you're out. And by the way, of course, they can tell the guy who's busted already he can't come back. They can ban him after they pay him. When you notice this, you can just say, okay, whoever's not in, get out. You're not allowed here anymore. Those still in the tournament, we're going to be watching you. And once you're out, you're not going to play here again. They can do that. So I agree with Mike Holtz. I think more needs to be done. There's no reason that this group of cheaters can just keep showing up over and over and over again and playing, and just because they've never been officially caught, that they have to just be welcomed back. No, they don't. So if it's assumed that this guy and his buddies are cheating, then kick them, even if it's not proven. I know it's not proven. I'm not saying it's 100%, but if asked, do I believe it? I would say yes, from what people are saying on Twitter, from what Mike is saying. Why is his buddy showing back up after busting and standing behind him and speaking Spanish? I mean, come on. And then running out of the room. Literally running when the floor man comes over. Come on. I want to talk about what's going on at the MGM and a certain whale who has been said to have lost a lot of money there. This is an interesting story. So first, before we get to this whale that is said to have lost a huge sum of money in present day. Let's go back to 2007 and recall the story of mega whale Terrrance Watanabe. He was the heir to the fortune generated by his dad, who was the founder of the mail-order giant Oriental Trading Company. And unlike his business-savvy dad, Terrrance was a mess. He was a pill-addicted, drunken moron who was not only a huge-stakes compulsive gambler, but also made some of the dumbest decisions at table games history. He was literally free money for the casinos. He was that bad. He wasn't just a high-stakes gambler who was negative expectation. He didn't understand the strategy of the games he'd play, to where he'd turn a negative expectation game into a huge negative expectation game. He had no chance. He played so badly. And he would drink so much and take so many pills, he would hardly know what he was doing. Steve Wynn, for all of his sexual harassment problems, did do something honorable involving Terrrance Watanabe. Wynn was the main casino of choice for Watanabe, but Wynn did not like what he was seeing. He felt that they were just taking advantage of Watanabe, that he was a problem gambler, and that they should not be serving him. So he called in Watanabe, spoke with him, and after they had a discussion, Steve said, "You know what? I think you're a problem gambler, and even though we make a lot of money from you, I'm banning you from Wynn casinos," and banned him. Well, of course, that didn't stop Terrance's gambling. He just got scooped up by Caesars, who was very happy to have him, and Caesars won $127 million off of him in 2007. Then he got another $60 million on credit that Caesars just trusted him that he had, and he really didn't. So after losing $60 million more, Caesars is like, "Okay, pay up," and he's like, actually, I don't really have it. Sorry about that. So they both sued each other. Watanabe claimed that Caesars violated gaming violations by getting him super drunk and acquiring pills for him, so he'd continue to shoot off his cash in an inebriated state, which is probably true. And Caesars claimed that he falsified having that extra $60 million more behind than he really did and obtained that credit under false pretenses, which is also probably true. So at the end, both sides realized they were both kind of guilty, and they both dropped it, and Watanabe slinked away in shame and was broke and was ruled not to owe anything further to Caesars. Caesars also created a ranking above 7 stars called Chairman for Watanabe. He got a chairman card because he complained 7 stars wasn't exclusive enough. He was the only one to ever hold the rank of chairman in the Total Rewards program, and the chairman rank was retired after Watanabe was no longer coming to Caesars. Well, it's no longer the 2000s, and we have a new Terrrance Watanabe, except this Terrrance Watanabe is a lot more talented and a lot more famous. Bruno Mars, yes, that Bruno Mars, is said to have lost $100 million plus at negative expectation games at MGM Properties. Vital Vegas tweeted on March 2nd, "Sounds like we haven't heard the last of the Bruno Mars gambling saga at MGM Resorts. Mars has reportedly stopped gambling at MGM casinos due to a potential lawsuit against the company for, quote, taking advantage of him by repeatedly extending his credit, leading to losses exceeding $100 million. MGM previously denied he had a gambling debt with the company. Pinky Ring is presumably part of his arrangement to pay back losses. I'll explain what that is shortly. Mars is obligated to perform there, which we're told he isn't thrilled about. Rumor's gonna rumor, but this is one to watch." So, this is not a new story. Bruno Mars was said to have this gambling issue long before March 2025. But this Pinky Ring, by the way, which is a nightclub at Bellagio, is themed around Bruno Mars. And that's what Vital Vegas was referring to, that Bruno Mars still has a contract, and he still has to perform there due to his contract, even though he has an issue with MGM right now over the money he allegedly lost. But was he really stupid enough to lose $100 million plus at MGM Properties? Well, in March 2024, a Variety article that's actually in the publication Variety, Variety.com, detailed the situation with Mars. And at the time, both MGM and Bruno Mars denied the problem gambling rumors. Back then, it was said that Bruno Mars made $90 million from his residencies at MGM Properties, but lost $50 million back to MGM from his gambling. MGM made this statement to Variety in March of 2024. They said, "We're proud of our relationship with Bruno Mars, one of the world's most thrilling and dynamic performers. From his shows at Dolby Live at Park MGM to the new Pinky Ring Lounge at Bellagio, Bruno's band of entertainment attracts visitors from around the globe. MGM and Bruno's partnership is long-standing and rooted in mutual respect. Any speculation otherwise is completely false. He has no debt with MGM. Together, we're excited to continue creating unforgettable experiences for our guests." Okay, so notice what that statement in March of 2024 did not say. It did not say he has no debt with MGM. It did not say that he's gambling smaller there than reported. It is not saying that he doesn't gamble at all. It just said that he has no debt with MGM. It didn't mean that he hadn't lost a fortune to them. It just said he has no debt with MGM. So perhaps in March of 2024, he didn't have debt. Perhaps he just lost back most of what he made there. Remember, he made $90 million. So now it said he does have debt from additional gambling beyond that, and that he lost over $100 million total. Not that he owes $100 million, but that he lost more than $100 million there and now has debt that he has not paid. So it's very clear he must have lost a fortune, because here Variety said that he's losing a fortune there. He's lost at least $50 million playing there. And MGM says, yeah, we're proud of our relationship. He's a great performer, and he performs this place and that place, and we have mutual respect, blah, blah, blah. All they said is he has no debt. They didn't say he's not gambling big or he didn't lose back most of the money he made there. They didn't say that, which is very big for them not to say. Because all they have to say is these reports are false. Bruno Mars has done relatively little gambling here. And not only doesn't he owe us money, he's not lost back the majority of the money he's made like they're claiming. And they can put this in a gentler way. I'm just making this off the top of my head. But they can make it clear he didn't lose back $50 million of the $90 he was paid. They could put that in some way where it's clear to the reader that he did not lose back a large chunk of that money he was paid. They could just say he has recreationally gambled there and lost only a very small percentage of what he has been paid there. Something like that, if that were true. They don't say that. They don't imply that because he probably did and they don't want to lie. So they just put out a lot of corporate speak and hope you get confused and just believe the no debt part, which might have been true at the time, and not realize that he's lost a fortune there. So remember, that was March of 2024. In March of 2025, Vital Vegas is claiming that he is considering suing MGM, despite the fact that he still has that Pinky Ring nightclub where he has to perform sometimes. And that he doesn't love having to go back there and do that, but it's part of the contract, so he has to. But that he might sue them for repeatedly extending his credit despite the fact that he was a problem gambler. So that'll be interesting if that lawsuit occurs, where Bruno Mars sues them for taking advantage of his problem gambling. The problem is this could hurt his reputation, unlike Terrrance Watanabe, who didn't have much of a reputation to protect. He wasn't a public figure. Bruno Mars is, and Bruno Mars' brand could be hurt by him going to court and admitting that he lost over $100 million to MGM and actually lost more money than he made during his very lucrative residency here. Imagine performing at MGM properties, making $90 million, and then losing that and more back to them. That's crazy. But that's what's allegedly happening here. How could you be so stupid to do that? At what point did Bruno Mars not realize that he can't beat these games? That it's just going to go one direction? Crazy. Like, at least he kept generating money. Like, why wouldn't you stop at some point and say, okay, I'm losing everything back, but I'm just going to stop here and make it all back. Fortunately, I make a fortune, so I'm just going to keep performing and stick to that. But obviously he has a compulsive gambling problem and just kept chunking it. So that, I believe, is the most I've ever seen of a celebrity lose to a casino over $100 million. Now, fortunately for Bruno Mars, he is still actively making money, and he's only 39 years old. So it's not like he's going to be broke the rest of his life like Terrrance Watanabe. But still, shoot off over $100 million, which I believe, by the way. I think this is correct. Maybe some of the rumors Vital Vegas is posting, it's not 100% going to happen. Maybe there's not going to be a lawsuit, but supposedly he's considering it. If I hear anything more about it, I will let you know. MGM Rewards has made some changes, some positive changes, believe it or not. This is unusual. Typically when I do these segments, it's to report something negative, something has been downgraded. But no, they've actually upgraded, and they did it at a weird time. So the MGM Rewards year, when the benefit year begins, is February 1st is the first day of that, just like Caesars. So if there's going to be some benefits changing, whether better or worse, that's when they're going to change, is February 1st. Casinos usually will not downgrade in the middle of the year, though it can happen. And Caesars has started doing it recently, but it's not all that common. They usually wait till the next year to do it on February 1st, or whenever their program begins. Upgrading, of course, can happen at any time. If they're improving the program, no one's going to complain. But it's just not that common. They usually don't improve the program in the middle of the year. They kind of feel like they might as well do it the next year and brag about how it's improving the following year and why people should play now as compared to before. But for whatever reason, MGM Rewards decided to change some things for the better and make it effective March 25th, 2025, which is just a week ago now. Here are the changes, and they might affect you. First of all, I have to review with you the 5 MGM Rewards levels. Sapphire is the base card. You get that for signing up, and that's the equivalent to Caesars Gold. Pearl is basically only getting you free parking and a few other small things, similar to Caesars Platinum. MGM Gold gets you out of resort fees, also has a $100 dinner, and now a cruise, which is a new addition that I'm going to talk about, that is similar to Caesars Diamond, but now is better. Platinum also gets you a $600 air travel credit and a $200 dinner. It's similar to Caesars Diamond Elite. And Noir gets you a $1,200 air travel credit, a $500 dinner. That's not based on your tier score. You have to be invited. It is similar to Caesars 7 stars, but it's harder to get. Those are the 5 levels. So there's 3 changes that have occurred starting March 25th. The first one involves the cruise. They have actually added a cruise. Now, they call it free, but it's not really free because you have to pay some taxes and fees, but it's very cheap. They've added this cruise to their gold level, which wasn't there before. And that's very nice because you think of Caesars, none of their diamonds, even Diamond Elite, gets a free cruise or a cheap cruise. You have to be 7 stars for that. But here at MGM now, starting March 25th, gives you up to 5 nights in an ocean view stateroom. That is a stateroom that has a window with an ocean view but no balcony. Or you could pick any room you want and just get a $750 credit towards whatever stateroom you choose. And this is for the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, RCCL. You also get a $75 casino free play and $125 onboard credit if you take this cruise. Prior to March 25th, you got no cruise benefit other than a small discount. So that's a nice additional benefit there for a level that usually does not get a cruise. Platinum, if you remember, is equivalent to Caesars Diamond Elite, roughly. That did get a cruise before, but they've upgraded it. Prior to March 25th, you would get the same benefit that Gold was getting now. So that 5 nights in an ocean view stateroom or the $750 fare credit, whichever one you choose, that was available to Platinum members, not to Gold. Gold got nothing. Now Platinum gets something better. Instead, they get 7 nights in a balcony stateroom, which is much better than an ocean view. Or if you don't want to take the balcony stateroom, you could just get a $1,500 fare credit off whatever you book yourself. You also get a $100 casino free play on board and a $200 onboard spending credit. Noir, which before got that Platinum benefit I just described, that was the Noir benefit before, now Noir gets upgraded. They get up to 10 nights in a junior suite on Royal Caribbean or concierge class on Celebrity Cruises. Or you can trade it for a $3,000 fare credit on Royal Caribbean, and you get $200 free play and $300 onboard spending credit. By the way, a junior suite is not as good as it sounds. On cruises, the difference between a balcony stateroom and a mini suite or a junior suite is not much. It's mainly a better bathroom. So the interior of a balcony room and the interior of a mini suite or junior suite on a cruise is very similar, but then the bathroom is much nicer in the mini suite, whereas the balcony stateroom, it's a very, very small thing with a tiny shower and very cramped. There's a real bathroom, kind of looking more like a hotel bathroom in a mini suite. That's the main difference. So that's what a junior suite is. But it's still up to 10 nights in a junior suite, or take $3,000 off whatever fare you pay. If you're not going to take the junior suite, that's a very nice deal. So that's to know our members. Now, what does Caesars give? Caesars gives you nothing for any kind of diamond, even Diamond Elite, as far as cruises go. And 7 Stars gets up to 8 nights on Norwegian on a balcony stateroom, and you cannot trade it in for fare credit. It's just you get the balcony stateroom or nothing. Also, if you take an Alaska cruise, I think you only get an ocean view. And that's when it's most important to have the balcony. Now, should you run down to MGM and do their status match so you get to be gold and get the free cruise? No. Why? Because you do not qualify for the cruise benefit if you get your MGM status through a match. So don't bother. This is only for people who actually earn their level through play. I assume if you earn it through spending on property, that counts too. You just can't get it through a match and get the cruise. Next, there is another benefit you may want to know. This one I'm not sure if it's open to people who got their benefit through a match. I think it actually is. This is a status match with Marriott Bonvoy. Marriott Bonvoy is their rewards program for Marriott. Keep in mind, and you may have noticed this if you do a lot of traveling, that there's been a lot of consolidation in the hotel industry in the United States. So there are really 3 big hotel companies that have swallowed up a lot of properties and a lot of brands. There is Hilton, there is Marriott, and there is IHG. That's the big 3. Wyndham is probably a distant 4th, but their properties aren't very nice typically. And then you also have ones like Hyatt, which, again, it's a chain, but it's not as big. But those are really the big 3, Hilton, Marriott, and IHG. For example, Westin is now part of Marriott. Starwood is part of Marriott. And these have been for a while. So these all fall under the Marriott Bonvoy program. And it is nice to have a high status because you can get free upgrades, you can get later checkouts, you get a little welcome gift when you come there, you get better service. So it's always nice to have a higher status at these hotels, even if it's not a casino thing. So you can now get a higher status at Marriott Bonvoy based upon your MGM status. And I think you can do it no matter how you got your MGM status. So you can match your MGM Pearl, which is very easy to get. You just get a credit card and it'll get you Pearl status automatically. You can match to Marriott Silver Elite. The Elite part doesn't matter. That's just what they call it. MGM Gold matches to Marriott Gold Elite. MGM Platinum also matches to Gold Elite. And then MGM Noir matches to Marriott Ambassador Elite. So you just get this Marriott status as a free perk matching with your MGM status. So I suggest you do that if you are not of that status at Marriott. Now, what about the other way? Can you take your high Marriott status and become a higher MGM Rewards tier? No. It's a one-way status match, which is kind of strange. So let's say you're a Marriott Ambassador Elite, which is very high, but you're only MGM Pearl, which is pretty low. Can you get a higher status? No. You cannot go match and get a higher MGM status. You can only get a higher Marriott status. But yeah, if you don't have a high Marriott status, might as well do it. It doesn't cost you anything. You never know when you have to use it. Finally, there's something called milestone rewards that they have added. So basically they realized that there will be some people who won't get all the way to either gold or platinum and will be frustrated and say, there's no point to keep playing this year because I'm not going to get to the next tier up, so F it. So it takes 75,000 tier credits to get to gold and 200,000 to get to platinum. So in order to make things a little bit more palatable to those who don't quite get there and know they won't get there, they've introduced something called milestone rewards, which gives you something along the way. So if you get 50,000 tiers, then they will guarantee that you'll get 7,500 free tiers to start 2026. Before, you would get 0 every time it would come to January 1st. It would reset your tiers down to 0. So now if you get to 50,000 tiers in 2025, you'll automatically start with 7,500 in 2026. Similarly, if you get to 125,000 tiers, they'll guarantee you will start with 25,000 tiers in 2026. Now, that doesn't add up on top of the 7,500 you already earned. They basically replace it. So if you get to 50K, then you'll be starting 2026 with 7,500. If you get to 125K, you'll be starting 2026 with 25K. So it's not a huge deal, but it's a nice little boost for the following year. I wouldn't shoot for it, but if you happen to be there, at least you get something. So these all began on March 25th, 2025. Why? Why would they begin it on March 2025? Why would that start on March 2025? Why would they not start this on February 1st? I mean, it's not that far away from February 1st, but why would they just not start it at the MGM Rewards New Year of February 1st? I think it's because they didn't think of it yet. Either that or they hadn't finished negotiations with Royal Caribbean, but I think they hadn't even thought of it yet by February 1st. And I think this is kind of a swipe at Caesars, because Caesars has been downgrading things. Remember I talked about the Caesars drinks. Remember the Caesars drink benefit, that anyone who's not 7 stars does not get that 4 free drink benefit in Vegas anymore, except at the casino bars. But the days of going to Starbucks and getting 4 free packaged drinks, or the little retail outlets and getting 4 naked juices or 4 Fiji waters, those days are over. You can't do that unless you're 7 stars now. And a lot of people are upset. I'm on Facebook and looking at all these groups where people are very upset about this. And new people are learning this every day. They go there and go, oh my God, what? I can't get my 4 naked juices anymore. I can't get my 4 Fijis. I can't get my 4 Starbucks drinks. What happened here? So people are feeling like Caesars is downgrading. And I have a feeling, I'm just guessing on this one. No one told me this, but I'm just guessing that MGM said, hey, you know what? We're seeing a lot of people pissed at Caesars about this. How about instead of downgrading our program, we upgrade it. We just make it nicer. And this is not really a secret. They emailed this out to everybody in the program. That's how I found it. I just got an email from MGM Rewards. And I read the whole thing and decided I'd clarify for you guys out here in case you missed the email or didn't really read it. So I really think they did this at this weird time, March 25th, as a way to steal members from Caesars who might want to transfer over there. That's a good idea. So MGM trying to show, hey, we're making our program better, and Caesars is making it worse. Where do you want to play? Interesting. Finally, see, I got through all the topics. I did all the topics. This is the last one. A lot of topics to do, and I got through them all. It took me a while, but a little faster than I thought. I took one short break, too. Whiskey Pete's. I have some news about them, and I have some associated news. So I kind of have 2 topics in one here. Whiskey Pete's, if you remember, is a casino that is in Primm, Nevada, and it is on the state line, on the Nevada side. And it's existed for a long time, but the business was going down and down. There was really no reason to go there, to be honest. But they finally shut down, and that really wasn't to anyone's surprise. I guess some people weren't really thinking about it, because who really thinks of Whiskey Pete's until something happens with it. But they finally shut down, and we've covered this before. It shut down in December of 2024. But there was the question of what is the future of Whiskey Pete's, and they were claiming they're going to try to reopen. Trader Risky, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, brother. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, and it feels good to have a co-host. I haven't had one recently. Anyway, we're going to talk about Whiskey Pete's, our final topic here. Have you ever been to Whiskey Pete's?
Just to pee.
Just to pee. I know, I think it was a Gene, actually, not Whiskey Pete's. My parents stopped there, again, not Whiskey Pete's, but one of those casinos, I think, in Gene, in 1973 to change my diaper. I had crapped in my diaper while they were driving in the desert there, and it smelled very bad in the car. So in 1973, they stopped at one of these places and changed me. That was my first venture into one of those area casinos. Anyway, Whiskey Pete's was claiming that they're just going to be renovating. They had a weird excuse as to why they were closing. They weren't just saying, hey, no one comes here anymore, and it's not worth it to stay open. We're shutting down. They're like, we're renovating, we're doing work. A lot of this didn't make any sense. Well, now it's starting to become more clear what's really happening, because they were insisting they're really not closing down for good. They're just kind of taking a break. They're taking a rest. Like, I was wondering, what do they think is going to happen between when they closed in December 2024 and sometime in the near future that's going to improve their business? I couldn't picture it. But I've found out what they're waiting for. So first of all, they asked for permission from Nevada Gaming to stay closed but licensed through December 2026. It's a lot harder to get a license again once you surrender it than to just reopen a closed license that you haven't actually given up. So they asked for permission to remain closed but remain licensed to where the license can just be immediately turned back on when they reopen. That's basically what they were asking Nevada Gaming to do. And Nevada Gaming said, okay, do it. Fine. We've given you permission through December 2026. I'm forgetting the exact date, but sometime in December 2026, they have their license until then, even if they remain closed, and then if they don't reopen, the license will be revoked. But why do they want that? What is the point? In fact, Desert Runner, who is a frequent poster on Poker Fraud Alert Forum and a radio listener, and also a personal friend of mine, he took a picture of the Whiskey Pete sign, which is all but gone. They've just dismantled everything, and it now says, Iski Pet. And the interior of the sign is now transparent because they've removed it. So it looks like a casino that's just gone. They haven't blown anything up or anything, but it looks like the sign's being dismantled. Well, I have a little bit more clarity for you as to what they're waiting for and why December 2026 is a time frame that they think that they can work with and make a decision on what they want to do with the future of that casino. So it has been determined that the Las Vegas airport, also known as Harry Reid International Airport, someone I don't like being honored, but nevertheless that's the name of it, is too congested. There are a lot of flights that come in and out of Harry Reid International Airport. In fact, Las Vegas, if you live there, you have one advantage in that you have a lot of nonstop flights to places all over the world. It's actually easier to get a nonstop flight from Las Vegas than Los Angeles, which you wouldn't expect, but it is. Why? Because a lot of people like to visit Vegas from around the world, so airlines find enough people who fly directly to and from Vegas from all over the world. They don't have to do stops because they get enough people to go directly between Vegas and many cities around the world, which you wouldn't expect. So it's a very congested airport. And there has been some talk about expanding it, but not in the way you might think. They're not thinking of expanding that airport. They're thinking of building a second airport to serve the Las Vegas area. So they are now strongly considering, and I thought this was stupid at first when it was proposed and it's not going to happen, but now there's some belief it is going to happen. They're going to open what's going to be called the Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport in the Ivanpah Valley, which is going to be between Jean and Prim, just east of Interstate 15. That's what they are considering opening up as a secondary airport to Harry Reid International, which is in Las Vegas. Now, this is not a new idea. This was actually considered very strongly in the 2000s. And then the 2008 financial crash killed that because the visitation to Vegas declined. Then they started to consider it again as the visitation rose back and was getting very high in the late 2010s, only to have COVID knock visitation back down. And they said, never mind, we don't need it. Well, 58.4 million passengers came through the Reed Airport in 2024. That was a record. So they've said, okay, well, we have the highest traffic through that airport ever now, so it's probably time to seriously consider doing this. For those that don't know I-15 and the area between the state line and Las Vegas, Primm is right there at the border. The second you cross the border, you're in Primm, which is not a real city. It's just a community. And then 12 miles north of there is Jean. Jean was once the area of the first state line area casinos there, whereas Primm just had like a tiny thing you could stop at, but really didn't get built up till the 90s. So that's why Jean existed. And then Jean kind of became obsolete once Primm developed, and now the whole area is struggling. Because truthfully, there's really no reason to stop there. Like, I never understood, why would you go to Jean? Why would you go to Primm when you can just drive 40 miles north and get to Vegas? Doesn't make sense to me. If you're driven all that way, why not go 40 more? But anyway, this airport would be, as I said, between Primm and Jean, so probably 35 miles or so from Vegas. And they are now seriously considering developing this and building it. It's presuming an opening in 2037. That's a long time away, 2037. 2037 is 12 years from now. I would be 65 years old and hopefully still alive. I bet a number of our listeners will be dead by then, as sad as that is. I'll try to remember this report I'm doing and catch up on it in 12 years. It's still kind of in the idea phase. They have not seriously developed the whole idea itself or come up with a cost estimate or come up with ways they're going to build the utilities and the roadways to it. Also, there's a discussion of how are they going to connect it to the Las Vegas area, because it's not really fair to just drop the passengers off in the middle of the desert and say, okay, well, you find your way 35 miles north in the desert, goodbye, with no car. So they're also considering building a rail line between that airport and either the Las Vegas airport or the Las Vegas Strip. However, environmentalists are saying not so fast. The desert tortoise and some plant that only grows in certain parts of the Mojave Desert and is in that area are saying, wait a minute, if you build this airport, that's going to kill the desert tortoise and the plant may also disappear. So we don't like this. We don't want this airport here. So they're getting in the way of this. Now, interestingly, Harry Reid, who has the current Las Vegas airport named after him, actually did help secure the land where that airport would be. So they don't have to acquire the land. They actually have it. It was in 2000 that he was able to get that land put under the Bureau of Land Management and then given to Clark County for the development of an airport. And I'm talking about a second airport. They already had the original one. And Bill Clinton signed it into law that year in 2000. So it's a 6,500-acre area of public land that the Bureau of Land Management gave to Clark County for this airport. The law requires the Secretary of Transportation to consult with the Interior Secretary to abide by the National Environmental Policy Act to get the permits for the development of the airport. And they have to draft an environmental impact statement that would require the evaluation of the environmental effects of that development, and that's where they could get tripped up by the whole thing with the tortoise and the plant. That could say, hey, this is going to make the tortoise go extinct here, so can't do it. So that could delay it even further. I have a feeling I'm not going to see that airport in my lifetime. Also, they're going to be reviewing whether the airport is going to affect the Mojave National Preserve, which is just south of there. Now, that's in California, but it's physically close by. And they're afraid that the aircraft noise, which would be substantial, could affect the preserve, not only people's enjoyment of it, but also the animals that are there. Agencies will have 2 years to complete the evaluation of the transition to the airport. They also have to consider the protection and management of petroglyph resources on the ground. So there's a lot of different environmental concerns that could stop this whole thing from occurring in the first place. An environmentalist who is in the Tucson, Arizona area, who's been monitoring the situation, said Congress gave them Clark County land to build an airport on, but there's no authorization for anything to be built. That's what the environmental impact statement is for. And so that's an important thing to bear in mind, is that an environmental impact statement, if the law is taken as face, is a yes or no process. So basically he's saying, you guys don't have this yet for an airport. You have the land, but if it's going to impact the environment too much, it's not happening. So keep that in mind. This is not a slam dunk, you've got this airport. The desert tortoise, in case you're wondering, is a federally protected species for being threatened. And in fact, the tortoise has been one of the bigger factors shaping how and when Las Vegas has developed. How many tortoises are there in the area? Well, they reviewed land near Pahrump for a solar plant project. Now, Pahrump is not very close to where this airport would be, but this was a review about the tortoise. And there were about 50 tortoises found. But then it turned out that after the project was started, that there were actually 3 times as many. There were actually 150 tortoises, and they had missed a lot because a lot of them hide, apparently. So there is some thought that maybe the tortoise is not as endangered as believed, and 150 is not a ton of them. I'm talking about just in the Pahrump area, not total. But that perhaps there's more tortoises than people are aware because they like to hide. And perhaps when this is looked into, there will be found enough tortoises there that they can build the airport without worrying about making them extinct. The plant I was talking about is the white margin penstemon. It only grows in 3 locations in the Mojave Desert, and one of them is the area where the airport would be. There's been some talk, what about just moving the tortoises elsewhere, or moving the plants elsewhere? The problem is the tortoises are thought to not survive very well in areas they're unfamiliar with, and there could be subtle differences that would prevent them from surviving. And with plants, it's even tougher, because these plants that only grow in a few places, sometimes there's a reason for that, and trying to move them will result in the plant either dying or not reproducing properly. The National Park Service is going to get involved in the environmental review process to maintain the solitude of the Mojave National Preserve. So it seems like a lot of things in the way here. I don't know if this is ever going to happen. But let's go back to Whiskey Pete's. What do they have to do with all this? Well, Whiskey Pete's is in Prim. So Whiskey Pete's, it seems pretty ridiculous to me, they believe that if they could reopen in December 2026, that they will be well positioned to take advantage of all the people coming in for that second airport in 2037. They just got to survive 11 years, guys. Just got to get past those 11 years. And that's if it opens in 2037. Could be delayed. Could never open because of the tortoise or the plant. But they're holding on. They're hanging on to that hope that 11 years after they reopen, that an airport will open, and then the money's going to be flowing in from all those people that choose not to go to Vegas and instead say, you know what, we're going to stay here and go to Whiskey Pete's, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Kind of makes more sense that they would just take the bus or the rail to Vegas. I mean, maybe if they rent a car that they'll pass by Whiskey Pete's, but wouldn't Whiskey Pete's be to the south of there? That's the other problem. They wouldn't pass Whiskey Pete's. Whiskey Pete's would be the wrong direction. But that's why they're trying to reopen, is in anticipation of the airport in 2037. I tell you, I don't think about very much stuff for 2037. That's really not on my mind. There's really not much I plan for that's going to occur in 2037. Other than I just hope I'm alive. But that's why Whiskey Pete's is trying to stay around. Seems like strange logic, but that's what they want to do. I have a feeling they're not going to reopen. They might just be stalling. They might be stalling and seeing if anything changes in this time. Because they may just say, hey, you never know what comes. You never know what circumstances might change. Maybe something opens there that brings gamblers in. Maybe even an industrial project that brings in regular gamblers there that don't want to go all the way to Vegas at night. So maybe this is just buying time. Doesn't really cost them much to just stay closed if they keep their license. So maybe that's it, and they're using the airport as an excuse. When I heard they were talking about they're anticipating the airport, I thought maybe the airport will be built sometime in the later 2020s, and that's what they're waiting for. I didn't think 2037. That's insane. 2037.
But that just means it would take a long time to complete stuff, right? I mean, I think they'd start it in a couple of years, and then they'd probably have all the workers that could stay there and everything else, I'd imagine.
I didn't think of that. See, this is why I am happy to have Trader Risky here. These moments where I miss stuff like this. But yeah, it could be if there's a large contingent of construction workers that are temporarily housed over there for 11 years, that this could be a hangout for them. And maybe that can be enough to get them by until that airport opens and makes the area more viable in general. Maybe that is the plan. Interesting. But that's what they claim. That's what Whiskey Pete's is banking on. And they're probably going around collecting turtles from anywhere they can find them and moving them. They're probably going to Pahrump and picking up tortoises, not turtles. I say tortoises. Similar, but not the same thing. Going to Pahrump and picking up tortoises and moving them down to that area. In fact, they should have done it before the extra 100 tortoises were discovered in Pahrump. They should have taken 100 tortoises from Pahrump down to that area in Prim and said, see, look how many tortoises we have. And then Pahrump will go, hey, you know what? Yeah, 50, we were right. We thought 50, there is 50. Wow, good guess. And then Whiskey Pete's will go, ha, 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 ha. If only they knew that we kidnapped 100 tortoises and put them here. That would be clever. They should have done that. They should have had an expert who realized that they undercounted the tortoise and then stolen the ones that were over the count, moved them there, and said, hey, there's no endangerment here. That would be clever. It's not like the tortoises are hard to catch. They can't move very fast. Do you know that tortoises live a long time? Like a very long time? They do. If you get a tortoise, there's a good chance it will outlive you, unless it gets sick or something. Tortoises are one of the few creatures to live longer than people. Almost every creature on land, and most at sea also, but especially on land, almost every creature on land has a shorter average lifespan than a human being. Think about it. How many animals do you know of that can outlive you if you're born at the same time? Very few. But a tortoise is one of them. Tortoises are known to live between 50 and 150 years, but some are thought to be over 200 years old. So that is a long time, and that means if you get a pet tortoise, it's probably going to live longer than you, and you better have an heir to leave it to. There was a tortoise known as Harriet that was estimated to have been born in 1830, and I think that died only recently. And then right now, a Seychelles giant tortoise believed to be born in 1832 is still alive. That's named Jonathan. And Jonathan is the oldest living land animal right now at 193 years old. But that's just what's known. There could be some that are older, and they just can't tell. There are some scientists, by the way, who have a theory that tortoises can sometimes live up to 1,000 years under the right circumstances, but there's been no proof of this. There's been some theory that it's possible. There's also a theory about humans that it's basically impossible to live past 120, that the human body has certain limitations in the ways the cells divide, and that you're basically guaranteed to die before 120, and that the one person thought to have lived past 120 was a fraud. And I actually believe that is the case, that the person who is believed to have made it to 122, a woman, that she had switched identities with her daughter in order to dodge taxes, and then didn't realize the daughter would live long enough to be thought to be the oldest woman in the world, and then, of course, they couldn't reveal the truth. But there were a lot of suspicious things about that woman, of how good a condition she was in her 110s that didn't make any sense, like how well she could sit up and move around. Her brain remained too sharp. There are too many things that just didn't deteriorate the way they should have at that age. So if that was a fraud, then nobody has ever lived to 120. And I know no man has ever made it to 117. Women have, but no man has ever made it to 117. Also, if you are going to have a shot at a super long lifespan, like coming close to the records, you are not going to be tall. Because tall people just do not set longevity records. Your best shot at making a super late age is if you are short and skinny, which of course is why women have an advantage. So anyone my height is not going to make it like really, really long. In fact, it's even tough to make it to 100 at my height. It can happen, but it's much more difficult at my height to make 100. So I'm not going to end up being the oldest man in the world.
Oh, sorry.
What were you going to say?
Are you familiar with Dave Asprey?
No.
So Dave Asprey, I think one of his bigger brands was Bulletproof Coffee. Anyway, so his goal is to live to 180. He does all these things with his body. I just saw him speak on Saturday that's for longevity. There's a shitload of money going into longevity startups and this and that.
Now, I'm looking at this guy here. I hadn't heard of him. I know there are some like people obsessed with longevity. I hadn't really looked into who they were. Now, I see he's not that old yet, though. He's younger than me. Not a lot younger than me, but he's only 51 right now. So, like, it's hard to really prove how well your theories are working when you're only 51.
Right.
So we'll have to see.
Well, and he's got centers like all over the. I mean, I know he's got one up in I think Vancouver, a couple in the States. Excuse me, where you can go in and just do these different, go into these chambers and don't eat this, don't eat that, all these different supplements you take. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think we're gonna miss any breakthrough, like even just solving cancer. I think we're both going to miss that. I don't think it's going to come fast enough. Like that type of thing, would really increase human life expectancy by a lot. It may not do a lot for the maximum life expectancy, but for the average life expectancy would really help. Like if they had a cure for cancer, or at least in some cases, or even ways to prevent cancer. But I don't see there being a major breakthrough. There might be in some forms of cancer and early detection, things like that. But I've heard for a long time now these promising things they've found that they think might be a cure for cancer, and then it just never pans out. Like very encouraging test results, and then you just never hear about it again. In fact, there's one recently out of China, and you can't believe much coming from China, but there's a study out of China that's very recent that they took advantage of the body's sometimes rejection of pig organs that are put in when someone's organs fail and they try to replace them with pig organs. Sometimes the body takes it, sometimes it doesn't. So they were looking into why, and then they thought, hey, what if we could use this to fight cancer? What if we could trick the body into believing that the cancer cells are equivalent to the pig organs and just have the body attack that and only that? So they engineered something that made the cancer cells look like they were pig cells and hoped that the body would attack them the same way that it does the organs that they try to transplant that get rejected. So in China, they claimed they did that and it was successful, and that someone with pretty late-stage cancer, that the body's immune system went in and killed all the cancer cells when they were able to trick it into believing it was these pig cells that shouldn't be there. So that's a claim out of China. But I see these things from different countries that claim this type of stuff where it seems like a major breakthrough, and then it just never pans out. You just never hear of it, and years later there's no sign of it being useful. So it'd be great if they could trick your body's immune system into thinking cancer cells are foreign animal cells and kill them all and not harm the rest of the body. that'd be wonderful, but I'm very skeptical. We're kind of running out of time here, though, before I'm going to need something like this, or possibly. And as I mentioned, I don't think you knew him, but I have a friend named Trevor, had a friend. He passed away this past week, and he was 59 years old. He passed away of pancreatic cancer, and he didn't live very long past when they figured out what it was. So by the time they figured out what it was, he had stage 4 already, and he was not going to have much time left, and did not. And that pancreatic cancer is known to do that. It's very good at hiding.
Sorry, drop.
Yeah, so I actually did an interview with him 3 days before he died, and I'm going to play it on either this show or the next one when I finish editing it. But yeah, it was sad and strange to think about how he's gone. And he wasn't associated with poker or gambling, so you probably wouldn't know him. And he's never been on the show before.
What do you do?
He actually had his own little podcast too, but he just did that for fun. He wasn't making money from it. But he did a lot of little things for money. He basically hadn't held a regular 9-to-5 job in decades. And he did things like trading rare baseball cards, and he did sales for radio stations that, like, on a freelance basis, and he just always did things to keep himself afloat. Never had big money, but he also was never poor, and basically lived his life in the manner he wanted and wasn't really tied down. And I told him that when I visited him in the hospital 3 days before he passed away. I told him that at least he wasn't one of these people who was waiting for his retirement at 65 and working his ass off, and then it didn't come because he got cancer and died. I said, yes, you're going to die at a young age, but you can look and say you enjoyed life for the entire time, and you really lived it on your terms. So you weren't waiting for a future that isn't going to come. And that did make him feel better. He did say, yeah, you're right. I got to enjoy most of the time I was alive and did what I wanted. A lot of people can't say that when they're on their deathbed. So he was, at least happy to think about that. But at the same time, he's like, it's just very strange to think about. Very soon I'm going to be gone. I don't know what's going to await me on the other side. I said, no, I know I would be thinking that too if I were in your position.
That's effed up. I'll be 58 next month.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, this month. Shit.
Yeah, just rolled over here. Yeah. It saddens me when people who listen to this show pass away. And I just hear the news that the reason they're gone is that they aren't alive anymore. Some of them are pretty old and some of them are not and just die kind of early. But anyway, see, we get into this depressing topic at the end just because they talk about tortoises.
Mm-hmm. But through all that, the tortoise keeps chugging along.
Yeah, the tortoise just keeps going. Turtles can live a long time too, but not as long as tortoises. But you're going to get anything along those lines, you got to be committed to a very long stint with them, probably the rest of your life. Especially at this point. If I got a tortoise now, boy, I would have to not just arrange for my kid to watch the tortoise, I have to say that my grandkids got to watch the tortoise. Maybe even the great-grandkids. I wonder what they do with the tortoises that the person dies and then no one related to them is willing to take care of it. What do they do then? I never thought of that, but they have to do something.
They have probably the tortoise sanctuary.
Yeah, they can't have a tortoise pound where they put them to sleep.
Here, let me Google it. Oh, wow. P. Diddy had a big tortoise sanctuary.
Oh, wow. That is interesting.
April Fools.
Oh, okay. I'd actually kind of believe it. You know what? I would have believed that one, though. I would have believed that he would have done something weird like that. Just like of all the crappy things he did, he just happened to do one nice thing for tortoises.
Exactly.
There sometimes are really shitty people that, for whatever reason, are nice to animals. That's been known. There have been killers that are found they've treated their pets very well.
Have you been coding much in AI?
I haven't been. I've thought about it, but I haven't done it.
I mean, it's unbelievable, Jeff. I can code in AI.
If I were younger, I would be totally going crazy with this. I remember thinking that too. oh, too bad this wasn't available like 30 years ago. I would just be doing so much. Now I'm kind of like losing energy and motivation for this type of stuff. But at the same time, it's interesting, and I want to try to get into it. I don't know, maybe at some point I will.
And there's something called the lovable.dev. Amazing. And it's really like, it'll code whole sites for you, integrate with Stripe. I mean, there's just so many things that can happen. Maybe using it for the new Skype integration we're going to have to do.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to be Skype. It's going to be a new replacement for Skype. Yeah, I've got to...
Well, right, exactly.
I've got to do that. Yeah, the entire Skype thing has been decoupled, except we are on Skype right now together. So we have that. And you actually sound better than usual. I actually kind of put down how you usually sound on the show from the sound quality-wise. And then today is better.
You're finally going to get their shit together right before it... shuts down.
Well, is it really Skype? Because truthfully, like when Calwatt's on here with a headset and a computer, he sounds like he's right next to me. But you're always on; it's all crackly, and it's. I always attribute it to be like having a crappy connection somewhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got my new. I did get my new Apple AirPods a few months ago, so maybe that's making a difference. But
yeah, you don't quite sound like Calwatt quality as far as sound, but. It's a lot better than before. This is a big improvement. But yeah, then Skype's going to go away soon. And I've already decoupled it. That's why I can't take phone calls now. I can take these Skype calls. That's how you're on with me. But cannot take the phone calls. That's why it was text only tonight. And let me take a look at the text before I shut this down. Now, the last one's telling me the radio connection had problems, which unfortunately I knew about. All righty. Well, that's it. Trader Risky, enjoy your day with work or whatever you're going to be doing. And I can't even go to sleep yet either.
Thank you, Jeff.
Got to do stuff. Yeah, thanks for listening to Poker Fraud Alert Radio. So we did a long episode here. No more 2-hour episode where I say I'll get back and do it again in a few days and I don't reappear. I did the whole long thing here since 6.5 hours ago with a very short break in the middle. So thank you for coming on, Trader Risky, and I'll talk to you a little bit later.
Thank you, Drop. If anybody does want to join any of my AI sessions I do twice a week, hit me up. You can get the PFA discount.
Yes. And if you need help reaching Trader Risky, you can always message me, and I'll direct you to him.
Okay, but all right, brother.
Have
a great day. Get some sleep. All right, Chuck.
Good day, Trader Risky.
Bye.
It was nice to hear from him again. I mean, I hear from him privately, but I've been on the show. Have you guys hear from him? I was just thinking as I started the show tonight, I go, I miss my co-hosts. I missed having co-hosts with me. I thought that on the break. I go, I go to the break, and I know I've just been ranting for hours by myself. The only break I get from ranting is when I play videos, and I comment on the videos. But it's nice to have a person with me here. Trader Risky came, and I felt like a guy on a desert island who gets a visitor on a boat. And I go, oh, another person. That was nice. I wasn't in radio isolation. When is the next show? Well, I mean, at least this show kind of spanned 2 months, right? It started in March, it ended in April. When is the next show? I got some stuff going on this month. I will find a time to do it. There's even a chance I could do it next week. There's a chance I could squeeze in an episode maybe on a Saturday night, now that I'm thinking about my schedule, but maybe not. Otherwise, I'll try to get one in the following week. I'm thinking I'll be splitting this in the archives into 2 parts, probably 3 hours each or so. And then I can drop in the Trevor interview, maybe in part 2. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking around, even though this show is not that frequent anymore. Hope you enjoyed what I put out for you and caught up on some topics I've meant to cover for a while. Anything you'd like to hear me talk about, let me know on any of the ways you can reach me. Poker Fraud Alert on Twitter, on the text number, whatever it might be. Good night, and shalom.